In outer space and clever, but the human race observed. Our planet was a mess.
Working in the laboratories until they finally did create the bomb and then to the quest.
Those space cats from another planet on a mission, fighting crime with feline intuition. Space cats are cool. Heroes, fight for justice, fight for freedom. That's exactly why we need them. Space cats rule. They're furry, they're funny, they're alphabet.
We'll be back.
Oh boy, Captain Crunch cereal!
A sagging cow.
Don't worry.
A boomerang.
Here's a little trick I learned down under, which is where that soggy's going. Uh-oh. Captain Crunch is a tasty part of a balanced breakfast. You don't have to go to the Australian outback for a boomerang. You can get one from Captain Crunch cereal and play outback in your own yard.
This is my backyard.
There's one of 4 colorful boomerangs in each specially marked box of Captain Crunch.
Beautiful bubbling. Ooh, blow beautiful bubbles for you. Ooh, I love it when they do what beautiful bubblings do. Ooh, all the little bubbles have beautiful hair and blow tiny bubbles everywhere.
Yes, they're sparkling. And there are bubblings with lockets.
We'll be back.
It's NBA playoff time, and there's only one place to turn for the inside story on who's hot. Get the inside stuff today on NBC.
Far off in space, from the distant planet of Triglyceride 7, they came to Earth. They came here with one purpose in mind, because frankly, they can only think of one thing at a time. Their mission on this planet, to assist in the quest for truth, justice, and a better quality cat food without the fishy aftertaste. And who might these visitors from another galaxy be? I'll tell you. They're a breed of extraterrestrial feline crime fighters known to the world as space cats. Stationed in a hidden location deep beneath the Earth's surface is the Space Cat's secret headquarters. Its location is so secret that even the Space Cats don't know where they are. It is here that they monitor the world above, utilizing the latest space-age technology and watching cable TV. Led by Captain Catgut, their commander and softball coach, the Space Cats wait to receive the orders that will affect the lives of everyone on this planet. Orders sent to them from their home planet by an alien game show host, the Great Dork, the disembodied omnipotent ruler of cats. Join us now as the Space Cats prepare to receive their latest mission.
All right, now, listen up, everyone. We're Space Cats. We're proud, we're furry, we're the greatest team of crime fighters the Earth has known. We can't afford to make mistakes. Now, it's important that each and every one of you pay attention to your jobs. We won't tolerate any slacking off. I hope I made my point. That is all. This is your leader, signing off. Oh, boy. Look busy, everybody. Mission orders coming in. I am receiving your signal. Oh, great one.
Captain Catgut, although it certainly applies, you do not always have to call me, oh, great one.
Fine. May I call you Doug?
No, kindly refer to me by my official title, the disembodied, omnipotent ruler of cats.
No offense, sir, but that's a mouthful.
Then call me Dork for short.
Very well, Dork for short.
Not Dork for short, just Dork, period.
Very well, Dork, period.
Dork, it's Dork. Can't you just call me Dork, stupid?
Sure, Dork, stupid. But, sir, frankly, that's pretty silly. Why don't I just call you Dork?
Sometimes I ask myself, why me? Why was I chosen to supervise a bunch of stupid cats? I was doing very well as a game show host before this assignment.
You were a game show host?
Oh, just watch the screen, dummy. This is Sprinkles the Clown, a very popular kiddie show host, up until now.
Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to learn about Mr. Sock and Mr. Shoe, and which one we put on first.
He was educational and entertaining. But recently his behavior started becoming rather bizarre.
How could you tell?
Try to stay with this.
Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to play with Mr. Guillotine.
That is pretty bizarre.
That's just part of it. Lately, Sprinkle seems like a whole different clown. He's even stopped carpooling to work.
Gee, it's sad to see a clown go bad.
Captain Catgut, I want you to launch a full-scale investigation. Find out why Sprinkles is acting so strangely.
Maybe he's not getting enough vitamins.
I doubt that, you idiot. This is a part of something much larger, more sinister.
How could you be so sure?
Because if it wasn't, this wouldn't be much of an adventure, would it?
Probably not.
Take care of the situation, Captain.
Not to worry, Dork, sir. I'll find out what's going on with this clown.
Oh, goody, goody. Now the world can rest, knowing there are cats on the job.
Not just any cats, sir. Space cats.
I still like the idea of space hamsters. I think I'll make a mental note and talk to my superiors.
Gee, what a dork.
Captain Catgut immediately put his crack Space Cat team on the case. The courageous crew will be led by Tom, an expert in weapons and demolitions and a fairly good speller. He also claims to have invented the cat door. Assisting Tom is the feline team of Scratch and Sniff. Scratch is a master of disguise who can camouflage the space cats in outfits ranging from famous people to inanimate objects, as shown in this recent photo. Scratch is named for his constant scratching, caused by a family of space fleas living in his fur. Oddly enough, they've been known to burst into song from time to time. And finally, we have Sniff, who is noted for his keen sense of smell. He can smell trouble a galaxy away.
After 10,000 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer Earth.
Alpha, we just escaped. Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
How long has it been? Since Elionian year 235.
Right, let's carry on looking at the camera job lot by looking at these Fujifilm Instax mini things. Ta-da! In case you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure you watch this video first, because that explains why I've bought these. No, it doesn't explain why I bought them. It explains that I did buy them, and I opened them up and tested for the faults. So let's just refresh our memory. Instax Mini 9, light pink. It's got flashing orange lights. Purple one also has flashing orange lights. They're both the same. The Mini 9, the dark pink one, I think works, but I haven't got a film to test it. I do now. And the Instax Mini 11, the light pink one here, the lens shutter sticks, so that doesn't fully open, so I couldn't test that any further. And then we've got the Instax Mini Link, which is this fella here. That appears to charge, but I didn't have a film to test, but again, I have one now. So I think I'm going to start, let's start on this one here. This is the one where the shutter sticks, so I'll just demonstrate that. How do you turn it on? There. There you go. It doesn't fully open. You can, oh, there you go. So you can pull it open, but even then, I don't think it took a picture. I don't know. Let's pop some batteries in it. Get rid of all of this other
manure.
Nice. Right. Well, let's pop some batteries in this bad boy. I've really forgotten how to do this. It hasn't been that long. There we go. 2 AA's. See, it's not fully open. And then we've got, oh, this one does have a light here. I didn't notice that before. So that's also got a flashing orange light. Ah, but now once that's fully open, that disappears. Okay, so it worked that time. It's not fully open there. Yeah, I think that's just sticking, isn't it? Well, let's pop a film in. Let's just see if it actually takes photos when it's fully open. I think these are like cartridges. In which case, I hope you can, you know, take them out and use them in other ones. You know, I hope they don't spoil, do you know what I mean? Because that would be really annoying. Because these aren't cheap. Well, I bought them now, so let's pop this in. How does it go? Oh, I don't know. Not like that. Like that, I guess. Okay. There you go, I didn't open at all then. Right, let's try and take a picture of Dave. See if we can get a better one than that. How do you do this? Are you supposed to hold it that way around? I think you are. Right. Well, it's not doing anything. No. Ah, there we go. We've got a flashing light there. Let's try that again. Yeah, it clicks, and then we get a flashing light. So this has possibly got the same fault as the other ones then with the orange flashing lights. Right, so I think the shutter thing is a secondary fault on this. I think there's something else wrong with it. Let's open it up and see if we can figure out what's going on.
Let's fix these cameras up. You know we're gonna try, even though we might just blow them up. We got the donkeys, we got the best of the best here. I got your squad, been supporting me for over a year. And I'm telling more than that, he at the frontier. Adam Taylor, you know which way he gonna steer. So let's do room, driving down it in top gear. Cool, Jenny's big thanks, grab yourselves a beer. Back to Princess Bridget, lengthy but we persevere. Attorney Dean, we gotta give him a cheer. Lee Burns, he's truly in the top tier. Frequent TV, turn it on and there he appear. Too much Michael Berg, I'm on you, bring me a souvenir. That's the donkeys, give them all a big cheer. When we wrap it, you didn't think I wouldn't do it? I Got to thank all the HSGs for getting me through it. And while we're here, thanks to those who didn't skip, screw it. You know you love it, although you're never gonna admit it. Here we go, Sam, Boom, Sour Cat, Flux, Michael, Biggie, John, Pusha, Cat, V-Nick, Lucas, Larry W, Dennis, Bro, Slimy, Slade on bass, Chris, Farkas, Canna, Terry, Kiss, Size, Kid Mix, Eve's Eve, Get the Money, Steve's to Panic, Jonathan Harden, rattling through these quick. Speaking of quick, apologies in advance for the 10 years late to give Quickie a chance. Only leaves me time to thank you again. This year has been a special one, 10 out of 10. I couldn't have done it without you. It helps with every single release. Let's finish up in style with much respect and peace.
Yeah, there was a sneaky little screw hiding behind that. I'm lucky I spotted that. Right. Wow. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Look at that capacitor. Wow. That must be for the flash. 320 volts. Wow, okay, I need to be careful because I've just had batteries in this. Let's just see if there's any charge in that capacitor. Altimeter in voltage DC. 270 volts. Okay. I did not expect that. I wish I had one of those things that you can connect up and that discharges it, but I don't. Or do I? I bought this and I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I wonder if this is one of those. I've never used it. I think it might be. I'll Google it first. Yeah, high voltage capacitor discharge pen. I'm a bit scared, to be honest. Well, let's give it a go. I don't know whether that lights up or anything, but...
Like it or not, humankind will end.
Did you locate the weapon?
She's just a kid.
You're my friend?
She dies with the rest of them. I can't do that.
The Creator.
Right, here goes. Wish me luck. Okay. Oh, okay. Nice. Well, I think that works. Let's see what voltage we've got in here now. There we go. 8 volts. Can you even see that? Could you even see that it had 270? And you probably don't believe me now. Right, well, I think it's safe to work on. I mean, I worry about the shutter if I can get it to actually take pictures. Why are you not working? Alright, well, nothing's jumping out at me. Right, what have we got? So that's the flash. Got a chip there that's a little bit discoloured. Might just be flux. Oh, I don't know though. Okay, we'll bear that in mind. What's all that around there? Is that corrosion or is that... Oh, what is that? Well, I will just give that a clean. That one looks alright. What's that there? Nice little solder blob. That won't help. Let me see if I can clean that up because that looks like a heat spot there in the middle to me. Still looks a little bit discoloured, doesn't it? Let me Google that, see what it is. Right, it's an NCH, is that N-channel IGBT for strobe flash. So I'm guessing that is what powers the flash. And obviously the flash didn't work. Interesting. Let's see if there's any shorts around that chip. Multimeter in continuity. Is that one there? No. So those three are ground. Should they be ground? Okay, so I think that is supposed to be grounded. I wonder whether it's something to do with this, what appears to be corrosion. Let's try and clean that area up a bit. Yeah, it looks like we've got a dull pin there, doesn't it? That one. Let's just see if there's...
Solid.
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 Well, that one moved. But I'm not sure that's connected to anything. Solid.
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 I think it's this. And I'd be surprised if that one was making a good connection. Where does that go to? It goes to that via there. Via, sorry. So the multimeter is still in continuity. Are we getting anything from there to there? Yes, annoyingly we are. Are we getting anything from there to there? Yes, how? That's moving. Not now. Ah, no. Yes. Is it going to be that? I'm going to grind back a bit more and see if I can get this whole track exposed and just go straight onto it. Now I've done that, that one doesn't look very clever either, does it? Is that one going to there? No. Unless I'm not on that properly. Ah. Yeah, I wasn't on it properly. Does that look a little bit discoloured? It does, doesn't it? Right, okay. I mean, it might not be this. I might be barking up the wrong tree, but I'm going to reflow these. Okay, let's just double check those on continuity. That one's good. That one's good. Yeah, I think we're good. Right, we've got a light here. Flashing orange, which is what it was doing before, but I think that is... Oh, no, it's gone off. Okay, let's try it now. Obviously, there's no film in it. No, same. I'm going to have to discharge this again now, aren't I? Nice. Right, I've just been doing a little bit of research on this, and apparently they are very picky about the batteries that are in. I mean, these are, as far as I know, these are fresh Duracells, so I don't see that they would be a problem, but, you know, let's just double check them. Nearly 1.7 volts, and the same on that. So yeah, those are brand new. I just wonder whether it just doesn't like them, because apparently it's very, very picky. I don't quite know why, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this up to the bench power supply. Then it can't argue that the voltage it's getting isn't clean. Right, so we've got the bench power supply on 3.2 volts, which should be about the same as a fresh pair of batteries. Let's power that on now. Right, so we get... Oh, we got an orange light for a second. Right, let's open this. Okay, let's try pressing this now. No, same. Right, so I don't think it is that. I think I've got a different fault here. I think the problem is something to do with the flash. Right, let's take another one apart. Right, so let's have a look at this one. So this is the one that I thought was working. Why did I think it was working? Because I've got the flashing lights. I could have sworn this flashed and took a photo first time I tested it. Not now. Right, I've got a horrible feeling then that all the faults on these four are going to be exactly the same, because we've got a flashing orange light on all of them now. Let's just verify it on the other two. Make sure they're still behaving the same. They might have changed as well. Ah, this is the one that I thought worked. I'm getting so confused. Right, so the purple one, yeah, flashing orange light. Okay, ignore me. Let's try this one. Right, you can hear the flash. As soon as you turn that on, the flash, you can hear, you know, like the charging noise of the flash. Right. There you go. I think that one probably does work, but obviously there's no film in this now. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the film in it. Oh, there we go. What's that? Obviously that's the top of the film. Where's the rest of it? Do I have to take it again? Well, what the hell is that? Okay. No, that's exactly the same photo. Let's take a picture of something that isn't Dave. Yeah, I mean, that's probably about £3 worth of film there that I've just wasted. Alright, so this one doesn't work. I mean, it works more than the others. Yeah, I should be able to make at least one good one, shouldn't I, out of these few. Maybe this just needs a different printer mechanism. I'm going to have to open this up. Right, I've been on these for hours now, and I'm not getting anywhere. Apparently it's a very common problem, this orange flashing light business, and nobody really has a solution other than change the batteries for some new ones. That's not the problem. So I've got these two open now. This is the
Oh, man. Wild. Hey, what's going on, and happy holidays, Hot Ones fans. This is Sean Evans coming at you from the cozy Hot Ones cabin located high in the snow-tipped mountains of Midtown Manhattan for our 3rd annual Hot Ones holiday extravaganza. We have an amazing show planned for you. We have Chili Klaus, who flew in from Denmark. He's gonna be in the kitchen with Esther Choi, cooking something up, heat eater style. We have camera guy Bill back to host the 3rd annual Hot Ones Holiday Extravaganza Award Show. And then we close it all out with Steve-O taking on the wings of death as only Steve-O can. It is crazy as you're thinking about it inside your head. Times it by 5, and you're really only halfway there. And of course, this is all to benefit Common Threads, our charity partner, an amazing organization who I'm happy to say we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for over the years. Common Threads is a national nonprofit that champions better health outcomes through the power of food. They do this through providing nutrition education, cooking skills, and quality food access, which they believe to be key foundational pillars of long-term health. Together with their partners, they impact 30 national markets, helping each community to embrace healthy cooking, healthy eating, and the celebration of cultures. If you've donated in the past, I want to say thank you. If you're thinking about it this time around, this is the year. You can see a donate button just below the video over here. If you have it in your heart, if you're able to this holiday season, please consider a donation. Your donation really means the world to us here at Hot Ones, the families and kids involved. And on that note, it's time to kick things off with some very special guests. Please welcome Amia, Mia, Quest, and Jabri. Come on over to set, guys. Welcome to the show, guys. Look at everyone hitting their marks. Are you guys good this year?
Yes.
What are you hoping that Santa leaves under the tree?
Toy.
Toys? You want toys? What do you want?
A hair doll.
a hair doll. Yeah, what about you?
What do you call those again? The gaming station?
You want a PS5?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I do too. Quest?
I want a mini car that you can drive in.
Oh, I like that. Like a little Ferrari. Thanks for raising your hand. It's so formal.
For Christmas, I want a hoverboard.
You want a hoverboard?
Yes.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed for you. I wish that Santa Claus was here today so I could tell him personally. We don't have Santa Claus here, but we do have the next best thing, and that's Chili Klaus, who flew in all the way from Denmark. He's hitting the kitchen with Heat Eater's own Esther Choi. Let's see what you guys are cooking up.
Thank you so much, Sean. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Chili Klaus.
Yes, I'm so thrilled to be here. I traveled all the way from Denmark, Scandinavia, to participate in this special Christmas show.
To see me.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know about you, but the holidays for me means family, means comfort food, and comfort food for me is Korean fried chicken. Have you ever had it before?
I've had chicken, but I've never had a Korean fried chicken. No, I'm so excited.
Yeah, Korean fried chicken is not your ordinary fried chicken. I'd say it's one of the best. It's spicy. And today, in your honor, I'm taking my Korean fried chicken recipe and kicking it up a notch using techniques of Nashville hot chicken. Really fun, spicy recipe.
That all sounds amazing. But before we get started, I need to get into my holiday spirit.
Whoa! Oh my God! Amazing, Chili Klaus.
Oh, I've changed into my final form, Santa Claus, today.
Love it. Santa Claus, so festive.
Esther, I've created a little game to crank up the heat on the recipe today. You have 3 stockings, and in the stockings there are some of the hottest peppers on the planet. We have a Carolina Reaper, we have a Trinidad Scorpion, and we have a crossbreed, a hybrid of something that the crazy guy from South Carolina, Smoking It, had made. Whatever stocking you choose, we have to incorporate that in the dishes that we're going to make.
I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Okay. Can I peek?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can peek.
Yeah. Of course you can. It's Christmas.
You know what? I'm gonna go with the one that matches my sweater.
Very good choice.
Right?
Let's see what's inside. Okay, that's new to me. That could be the hybrid, which could be anything from Carolina Reaper, maybe a Pepper X, maybe a Apollo. Only thing I know is that Smoking It is crazy.
All right, you ready to cook?
I'm ready to cook, yeah.
Okay, so we have a whole chicken that I have cut up into 10 pieces. So we are gonna brine the chicken, and this is what makes the chicken super juicy.
Wow.
And we brine it in some kimchi juice.
Yes, wow.
And that's the secret. Our Korean fried chicken has a very unique blend of flour. So it's regular all-purpose flour, some cornstarch, and then rice flour. And then we have some spices.
Would you say that Korean food is spicy overall?
Overall, it's definitely like very flavorful cuisine.
Yeah.
And yes, a lot of the dishes are quite spicy. But you know, we're spicy people.
Korea forever.
Yeah, see? Okay, so now we're going to batter the chicken and then fry it.
I'm super excited of this. It looks amazing. I love this kind of food.
This will fry for about 7 minutes, okay? And we want to be pretty exact with the timing, so we'll put our timer on for this. We'll take the chicken out and let it rest for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a second fry. While the oil's hot, this is a technique in like Nashville hot chicken.
Yes.
You're essentially toasting all of the spices and sort of infusing and making a chili oil, right?
It's wonderful.
The next step is making a spicy glaze with the gochujang. This is fermented red chili paste. This is the heart of like any Korean fried chicken recipe. And then we'll add soy sauce, honey, some rice vinegar, minced garlic, white pepper, and sugar. And of course your secret ingredient.
But a good thing could be to slice it up and get rid of the
seeds?
Because it's not the seeds that are spicy. You can see the moisture there. That's pure capsaicin.
we're just gonna do the second fry.
Yeah.
5 more minutes for the breast, and then we'll leave the darker meat in for 2 more minutes because it cooks a little longer, okay? So it's been 5 minutes, so we're just gonna pull the chicken. But you remember that chili oil we made?
Yeah, I remember.
What I like to do is we'll do a little dip in the chili oil, like so.
Extra.
Right? Just beautiful.
This is Christmas.
This is Christmas. It's comfort food. It's something fun. So, one last part, the glaze, right? And instead of like dipping it, because then it gets soggy, what I like to do is I like to brush on the glaze. I like to decorate and be festive with some red and green chili peppers. There's nothing left to do but to taste the chicken.
Oh, cool.
What do you think? Oh, that's spicy.
For Christmas. Mmm.
The singing comes out, you know we got something special here.
I think the sweetness, lowering the heat.
It's balanced, right?
Yeah.
But definitely it's got a kick. And it's actually building. You like it?
Very nice. It's really good. Esther, thank you for a very nice time in your kitchen, and thank you for sharing your wonderful recipe. I had to bring you something. This is Danish butter cookies, and they are famous all over the world. But I've made a little extra spice in between. So as I do in my videos, it's your choice. Do you want a chili or vanilla butter?
I mean, you know I'm gonna go with the chili.
Yes, of
Come on. Delicious. It's nothing compared to the sauce. Oh, actually, it's kind of spicy, actually. Chili Klaus, thank you so much for joining me today. I think my mouth is on fire right now. Everyone at home, don't forget to hit the donation button to make a contribution to comment threads. It will mean so much to us. Happy holidays. Back to you, Sean.
Wow, Chili Klaus is Santa. That's my new favorite thing. Hey, you guys want to play a game?
Yeah!
All right, so this is a holiday game of Would You Rather, okay?
Yes.
So I'll ask you a question.
I love this.
You do, all right. Finally, we hooked you in. Would you rather receive 1 giant present or 10 smaller presents?
How small are the presents gonna be?
They're like the size of my foot are the smaller ones.
Yeah, I'm going with the big one.
The big one, okay. Yes?
I agree with Quest, the big one.
Yeah.
I agree with both of them.
You want a big?
10 smaller ones.
10 small ones. I think I'm with you. I agree with you. I want 10 small ones. Here's a question for you. Would you rather eat a gingerbread house or live in a gingerbread house?
Eat a gingerbread house because gingerbread houses are really small.
That is true. It'd be tough to live in one of those little gingerbread houses. You're right about that.
I choose to live in a gingerbread house because I can take sprinkles and jelly bean showers.
Yeah, you could take sprinkles and jelly bean showers. How about this? Would you rather have a red nose like Rudolph or long green fingers like the Grinch?
Red nose like Rudolph because the long green fingers, they would know that you're basically like the Grinch.
Yeah, right. You give yourself away with those long green fingers. I agree.
I'd rather have a red nose like Rudolph because I could just put makeup on it and no one will ever know.
That's smart. That's right. Your kids are smart. Quest, sure.
I would say a red nose because Christmas, Rudolph is something in Christmas, and it's almost Christmas.
Makes sense to me.
And I feel that Rudolph is special.
He is special. Rudolph is special, but let's not lose sight of the Grinch over here. The Grinch is special too, you know? He's just been kind of ostracized from the community and forced to the top of the mountain. And then you have all the townspeople kind of gossiping about him, and it kind of turns him into a monster. But then what does he do? He comes down in his attempt to ruin Christmas. He actually sees the value in it. His heart grows 2 sizes that day. You know what I mean? That's also growth. So I don't want us to just be bashing the Grinch here, even though it would be cool to have a red nose. Yes?
But long furry nails are weird.
Yeah, you're right. He does have weird fingers, though. At the end of the day, it all does come back to that. You're right. Here, I got one more for you guys. This is a fun game. Would you rather eat the hottest pepper in the world or watch the Hot Ones Awards?
The Hot Ones Award.
The Hot Ones Awards?
The Hot Ones Awards.
The Hot Ones Awards?
Eat the spiciest pepper.
We're not going to feed these kids the hottest pepper in the world, all right? Save your comments. It's not going there, okay? You guys, it has been so much fun getting to know you guys. Happy holidays. I'll see you next year.
Yeah. Next year, I will eat the world's hottest chicken wings.
There we go. Thank you guys so much.
Good job, Daddy.
Good job. Was it fun being on TV?
Yeah.
Did you have fun being on TV?
Yes.
And now it's time for the Hot Ones Holiday Awards with our very own camera guy, Bill.
La-dee-da-dee-da! It's the Hot Ones Awards! They're the spiciest, the mightiest, the Hot Ones Awards! We're back for year 3. Hip, hip, hip-hurry. It's the Hot Ones Awards! Thanks, Sean and friends. We're back, Spice Lords, for the 2023 Hot Ones Awards. This year, the Hot Ones Awards Committee has been crunching numbers, watching episodes, rewatching episodes to bring you the best moments of the year. And be sure to stay tuned after for a special Lifetime Achievement Award for one of our most beloved guests of all time. Let's get at it. Now, I know that I said we were going to take a look back, but this first guest took things way back. In what was one of the most insightful moments of the year, Cardi B let the audience in on a little-known fact about her.
I love FDR.
You love FDR?
Yes, and I love Eleanor Roosevelt. And you know how he got us through the Great Depression with a war.
Mm-hmm.
Only president that got elected 4 times while he's in a wheelchair.
FD, are you kidding me about all that knowledge? That's so great. You get an A+ from me, Cardi B. The award for favorite history lesson goes to Cardi B.
What an honor to win an award that I thought I would never win after high school. Thank you, Hot Ones, for this award. I would like to thank my history teachers and Eleanor Roosevelt for introducing me to loving history. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you, love ya.
One of our favorite awards is the award that captures the essence of the Hot Ones Gauntlet. We love the unexpected reactions of celebrities. Earlier this year, the Bomb tried to knock this guest out, but he wasn't going down without a fight.
God damn! Oh! Oh, God! Woo! Woo! Woo!
LL Cool J, more like LL Hot Mouth J, am I right? Mama said knock you out, huh? And the award for favorite reactions goes to LL Cool J.
What up, Spice Lords? Hot Ones, Sean. I want to thank you for this award. I'm still recovering, baby. But I appreciate y'all, man. It was a lot of fun, man. One love.
Earlier this year, we took a trip across the pond to the UK and came back with some pretty awesome episodes. The Brits may not love spicy food, but they sure do come prepared. Who could forget this moment?
My tongue is tingling, and it's like, as I talk more, it's getting worse.
Yeah, and it's not gonna stop for the next couple minutes.
Yeah.
We're just gonna be on this roller coaster.
Just gonna.
Yeah. Does that work?
Yeah.
When it comes to the most effective spice fighting strategy, the award goes to Amelia de Moldenberg and her mini fan.
Hello everyone at Hot Ones. I'm very excited to accept my award for the most effective spice fighting strategy. The mini fan was a very, very big help to me with the bomb, and yeah, it really cooled down my tongue. It was a great time I had on Hot Ones, and yeah, thank you so much for the award. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm your biggest fan, Amelia. Congratulations. When I think back on my favorite Hot Ones moment of the year, all I can think about is when the crew was mesmerized by a guest in the hot seat. This guest had us razzle-dazzled with his charismatic aura and left us smiling from ear to ear. Our hearts sure were full houses that day. Take a look.
Can we get him on the phone? Maybe. Hold on, I'll just put this on speaker. Come on.
Hey there.
Hey, Dad. Hi, Dad. I'm happy you picked up. You're actually on the show right now, okay? I'm gonna put you on the
What's
phone
his
with John Stamos. Mike.
Oh, hi, Mr. Evans. It's John Stamos.
Hi, John.
I'm on your son's show. Are you proud of him?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I play with the Beach Boys, you know, and we're at Ravinia every other year. Have you seen them?
I've heard you play drums with the Beach Boys at Ravinia.
Anytime we're there, you have front row seats, backstage passes on me. I would love to meet you and see you after or before the show, and maybe even get on stage and sing Bob Around with us.
I'll take you up on that.
Okay. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, take care.
Your son's making a lot of money, by the way, so, you know.
Nobody has to.
All right, love you.
Love you.
Love you too.
All right, bye.
That's great that you said I love you. That's so beautiful.
I should call my dad. John Stamos, you've won the Wholesome Moment Award.
Oh, hold on a second. I have to. Mike, I'll call you back. Okay. I'll call you. I'll call you right back. Okay. I love you too. Bye. Hi. Sorry, I was talking to your dad, Sean. I'm so grateful for this award. I was just happy to be nominated and then to win most wholesome moment award for calling your dad that day is it just means the world to me. Hold on a second. Yes, Mike. Thank you. That's cute. No, I'm accepting this award for us. Actually, it's both. Yeah, from your son. All right. Hold. Okay. I love you too. Hold on a second. I gotta go, guys. Thanks for the award, and Sean, I really appreciate the introduction to your dad. We really hit it off, and you know, I don't know. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Hi, Mike. I'm back. Yeah.
Sinariteria, John Stamos. Opa! Last but not least, it's time for the coveted Hot Ones Lifetime Achievement Award. This award goes to our first guest ever. 8 years ago, he took a chance on some people asking him to answer hot questions and eat even hotter wings. Let's take a look.
You know how the show works? We're gonna eat some hot food. And you're gonna ask me some crazy hot questions. You're gonna eat some wings with me.
So you're here to challenge me?
I'm challenging you.
What you may not know about the moment is Tony Yayo went off script and actually challenged Sean to eat the wings alongside him. And the rest is history. Congrats, Mr. Tony Yayo.
Yeah, it's the Talk of New York, Tony Yayo. You net, and I'm reporting from Dublin, Ireland right now. And I want to thank Sean Evans, First We Feast, in the Hot Ones show, one of the best shows ever created. I was the first one on the show in 2015. I just want to thank y'all for having me on the show and giving me the opportunity to be on there. And look what we created. Let's go.
Good job, Yayo. Well, there you have it, Spice Lords. We've laughed, we've cried, we've shared memories and moments together, and now it's in the history books, and there's nothing left to do but get to the grand finale. Now, I know the special is all about the kids, but this next segment is definitely not for the kids. So please, please, please put the munchkins to bed and get ready for Steve-O's not first, not second, but third time taking on the Wings of Death. Take it away, Sean.
All right, everybody, it is that time, the finale of our Hot Ones holiday extravaganza, and I could not be more excited to once again be sharing a set with Steve-O. He has a brand new special out now called Steve-O's Bucket List, a showcase of stunts deemed too extreme for television. The unrated special is available on steveo.com, and don't forget Steve-O's hot sauce for your butthole, and it's near perfect 5-star rating on Amazon. Those 6,000 plus reviewers can't be wrong, Steve-O. Welcome back to Hot Ones.
That's darn right, man. You do an intro like no other.
Wow, well, it's such a compliment, especially coming from you, Steve-O. And before we get started, if you are able, please consider a donation to Common Threads. We are very lucky to have Steve-O back on set to burn his face off. Steve-O, are you ready for another go-round?
The reason I'm here, I'm well aware, is because I've delivered what we call holy shit moments.
Many over the course of this show.
Yeah, and I was thinking, how can I top myself?
Uh-oh.
I did come up with an idea that's so fucking absurd. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna happen, but we'll get to that later.
All right, you're gonna surprise me here at the end. Once again, I'm just holding on tight to the Steve-O train wherever it goes.
Yeah, that's what we do, man. So let's get into it. Nothing like super hot wings on an empty stomach.
It's a pain I know all too well. I've been there before.
Yep. It might call for Steve-O's butt wipes for your butthole. Available at Steve-O.com. I tell you, these are the best butt wipes in the business.
You know, I'd love to see the Steve-O empire just grow and grow and grow over here. So your latest special bucket list is a show that pushes you to your limits, but also one that pushes the audience to its limits, with several people passing out during the live show. Is that a problem that you anticipated while planning out the bucket list tour, or was it a phenomenon that took you by surprise?
I never, ever thought that that would even be a thing. The worst thing is that a lot of the time they feel like, oh, you know, I need to go get some fresh air. I feel a little queasy. So they'll get up out of their seat, walk out into the lobby or the bathroom, and then pass out while they're standing and maybe hit their head or something. It was like really, really alarming. And I never wanted that to happen. But if I'm honest, kind of proud that it did.
The opening sequence with Bill Burr in the helicopter is as compelling as anything that I've ever seen, like an action movie sequence. Were there any unexpected challenges in a stunt like that requires so much coordination and so many moving parts?
I invested in a large amount of balsa wood to create a special billboard, which we designed, and I was gonna crash through it while dangling from this rope ladder, you know, from the helicopter. But the wind didn't work. Fortunately, we had electrical wires to crash me through instead. Dropping from a rope ladder attached to a helicopter in like the air onto the roof of a moving tour bus was utterly terrifying. Totally sketchy.
On the topic of utterly terrifying, you know, the most distressing scene for me was when you're injected with that drug that's supposed to paralyze you from the waist down, and then it started to creep into your upper body, which you were warned was like a major problem. Is that the most genuinely terrified you've ever been on camera? Or is there another event that holds the crown?
Big time. I'm sitting there on the ground, I'm like, I can't breathe. And I'm thinking I'm just gonna die on the ground in this field, like with this medical professional in disguise. Everybody's going to jail and I'm gonna be dead. Right. You know, like, for me to say I'm having trouble breathing was like very difficult. I was legitimately having trouble breathing in enough air to say, I'm having trouble breathing. It was the most scared I've been maybe ever on camera.
Well, I'm happy you made it through and happy that you're here today. Are you ready to move on here to sauce number 2?
I am, dude, but not before I tell you that I love you.
I love you right back. I love you right back, Steve-O. The good news today, only 5 wings. The bad news is it's a pretty steep ramp up.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
There's no bad news on Hot Ones.
No. It's all good news here.
Did I tell you what happened after my first episode of Hot Ones?
No, I don't think so.
I was fighting it so that I could communicate. And when I left, I got out of my car having to pee. Went over to the bushes.
You touched.
My wiener was on fire. Like, I was totally okay otherwise, but when I grabbed a hold of my wiener to pee in those bushes, God.
Yeah, well, there's no way that was as bad as the next time you were on the show and you dumped a whole bottle of hot sauce into your eye.
That's true. That's true.
So from Santa colonoscopies to the eggnog challenge, Jackass has always celebrated the holiday tradition. What's the gnarliest stunt that you've ever done in the icy snow? From surfing Alaska to dry ice slip and slide to the 70-foot ski jump, you have some classics under your belt.
There's extreme ice skating.
Yeah, I remember that, where you fell through.
Yeah, fell through the ice on ice skates wearing a tutu. That was fun. And I'm almost 50 years old. Can you believe it? Still pushing the boundaries. I love it, man. I'm so grateful for this life.
What made your hockey slingshot at the Frozen Dome in Syracuse, New York? What made that one of the most regrettable stunts of your life?
I got this call like, hey, we want to bring you on the ice and do this stunt. And I thought, oh, great, I'm in Syracuse anyway. So they had this slingshot thing, and we did the rehearsal. It was just so lame. I was like, you know what?
So you knew it wasn't going to work before it happened.
I knew it was going to be... I knew it was going to be terrible. So I said, the only way to make this cool as if people fire pucks at me. And even with that, it wasn't cool. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the worst of both worlds because I'm getting nailed by hockey pucks all over me. Hurts like hell.
And then getting booed.
Getting booed. Really tasty. Gonna creep up on me a little bit. I love that I'm like legitimately really hungry.
Is there a difference in your mind between the kind of laugh that you get from a stunt and the kind of laugh that you get from telling a joke? And is one more satisfying than the other?
Yeah, I think laughs are pretty universal. And then there's like shrieking, terror, like there's all kinds of different responses that I like to evoke. And some you're only gonna get from like the really crazy stunts.
And then, in this special, you'll go from 1 minute rappelling down the side of a moving van to the next minute, setting a world record for the longest breath hold in a pool of pee.
Yeah, pee diving.
Yeah, pee diving, naturally. Which gives you more anxiety, the dangerous stunts or the ones that are just straight gross?
I'm pretty good with gross.
You're comfortable with gross.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with gross. When I did the belly flop off the big RV into the pool of urine, I wasn't even worried about the urine. I was actually really scared of the belly flop.
Right, yeah, not too much distance in that pool of pee there.
I know. I remember I was having all these terrorizing thoughts of if I land on a weird angle, I could break my neck and be paralyzed. And God, if I get paralyzed doing a belly flop off an RV into a kiddie pool full of piss, that's gonna be a bummer.
Yeah, what's that gonna look like on the tombstone, Steve-O?
Right. Somebody asked me today, what would I want on my tombstone?
He died as he lived, jumping off RVs into pools full of piss.
What I came up with is, here lies Steve-O, who lived by the motto, the body is not a temple. It's a fucking amusement park, baby. Ride it until the wheels fall off.
Well, on the topic of riding until the wheels fall off, this next sauce is the bomb beyond insanity. One that at this point, being your third time trying it.
Yep. That's right. Remember I told you I had an idea?
Yeah, what's your idea?
If I were to lube up my butthole with coconut oil, how would it go getting a bottle of Steve-O's hot sauce for your butthole into my butthole? This is fucked up, dude. It's gonna get hotter than this.
Yeah, and
God damn it.
Real after hours hotter, it sounds like.
Like I said, I didn't think that this would necessarily happen.
Yeah.
But as I put it out there as an idea.
Yeah. I like the idea. We don't live in Steve-O.com rules over here. You know what I'm saying?
But we can shoot it from the side.
All right, well, let's put that just to the side for now. Let's see where this goes, okay, Steve-O?
You know what?
Something, yeah.
I have no interest in finishing this, dude.
Yeah, no, yeah. That is, and it takes you back, and it's Pavlovian, and every time I try it, it takes me back to every moment I've tried it, and it is no fun. It's no fun.
Christ,
I don't blame you.
that's
I know.
fucked up,
I know.
dude.
It's fucked up. It's fucked. Says the guy who just brought the coconut oil and hot sauce onto the table. That's coming from this guy. Does your dad still advise you on business decisions? And if so, what's the best piece of business advice you've gotten from him? And then is there anything that you found yourself pushing back on as you build out the Steve-O empire?
Thank you for asking that question. I've gotten my dad, who's famously a retired corporate executive, hugely successful businessman in his career. I've gotten him out of retirement. He's officially working in the capacity of my business manager. And he's able to compartmentalize. Like, the kinds of things I did on my bucket list special, he's not a fan of. But he sees the value in it, and he's just like a human calculator.
Did you recently get a tattoo of your favorite British snack, Monster Munch?
I did. I did.
Uh-oh. Oh, that works.
Man, dude, I don't remember being so bummed on how
hot the sauce is?
Yeah.
Well, I think what happens...
I think you guys got mad at me because I suggested that my extra hot Steve-O's Butthole Destroyer hot sauce might be hotter than your guys' stuff, but I'm having trouble believing that that's true right now.
That's what happens, you know? It becomes a turf war over here in the hot sauce game, you know? Dog eat dog out here.
Woof. Yeah, Jesus.
All right, Steve-O.
Far be it from me to disrespect tradition. Is that really the same thing that it's always been?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Maybe I'm becoming a pussy.
There you go. That's perfect. Textbook.
All right.
All right.
I'm gonna eat this and then I'm gonna lube up my butt.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Oh, man. Wild. I know. That picture's all yours. That picture's all yours. To close things out, Steve-O, I have a little bit of a thought exercise for you, okay?
Okay.
If you were to build a Steve-O museum, I'm curious, which artifact would be your version of King Tut's mask? Which image would be your Mona Lisa? And then which stunt would you canonize as your magnum opus?
Wow, what a great question. Already in the works.
The Steve-O Museum?
Yep.
I can't wait for the ribbon cutting on that.
It's called Disgraceland.
Good name.
And the most valuable, I would say, the cheetah bikini.
Yes, classic.
Oh man, it's starting in.
Yeah, I know.
Woo! Okay. Then there's the shirt that I was wearing when I laid down in rocket engine fuel and had my buddies light it, which ended up in skin graft surgery on 15% of my body.
You gotta immortalize that.
I recently framed the photo that you see get snapped at the end of the Bucket List special where I crowd surf on the very last audience of the Bucket List tour. And I signed it and marked it 1 of 1. I love that picture.
All right, Steve-O, this is a historic moment.
Oh, put that up my butt. Way better.
I'd like to close out the Hot Ones Holiday Extravaganza with this award for you, Steve-O.
Oh my God, dude, this is so much better, dude. How
This
perfect.
is a three-peat award right here. We could even call it the award because you're also the first person to win multiple Holiday Extravaganza awards. And before, oh no.
I've always said that if I ever were to win an Oscar, that I would want to shove it up my butt as I accepted it on stage. But let's be honest, I'm not gonna fit an Oscar up there. I never get past the shoulders. But this, I think if I lube this up a little bit. Here we go, Hot Ones Holiday Extravaganza.
Our last episode ever. Thank you so much for watching. If you are able, please consider a donation.
Oh! Oh my God. I'm in.
Oh my God.
How far am I in?
The first time I'm hostage on my own show.
I'm past the neck.
Oh my God, yeah, you are. I did confirm.
Okay, can I hold it?
Yeah! Let's hear it for Steve-O.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God, is it stuck?
Yay!
All right, let's hear it for Steve-O.
Man, I don't know if I'm okay. But I love you.
I love you too.
All right.
There you go.
This is going in Disgraceland. Woof.
Good to see you, Donnie.
Yeah, likewise.
Congrats on everything.
Thank you. Did anybody get a photo of it in there?
Yeah, he's like, I got a memory card. Wow. Well, what a way to celebrate the holiday season. And there you have it, another Hot Ones holiday extravaganza in the books. If you have donated, I personally want to say thank you. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to say please consider a donation. And from those of us here at this show, to you and your families, thank you so much for watching.
You know you're a chick enjoyer when
it's your true love, wala pa ta bata.
Hey besties, right now we're in Vietnam and I want to say thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. As we're on the brink of a brand new year, let's chat about something important, the huge impact of therapy. It's not just about overcoming life challenges, it's about setting the stage for emotional growth. Thanks to therapy, I've learned to understand my emotions. Yes, I have those, a lot of them, sometimes too many. But I've also learned to understand the emotions of others, like friends, my significant other, and folks I work with. It improved my communication skills and actually brought me closer to the people who mean the world to me. Today's video sponsor, BetterHelp, is here to be your partner on this incredible journey. BetterHelp has a league of licensed therapists ready to guide you towards self-discovery and stronger connections. They're on a mission to make therapy accessible and affordable for everyone. It's all online, so there's no need to worry about location constraints. Getting started is as simple as answering a few questions to create your profile. In most cases, within 48 hours or less. Then you can talk to that therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it be a phone call, video chat, or messaging. If deepening your self-awareness and connections with others is important to you, give therapy a shot. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/besteverfood to get 10% off your first month. Oh, and here's the best part. With BetterHelp, switching therapists is super easy. And there are no hidden costs or insurance headaches. So what are you waiting for? Let's start the new year with a fresh perspective. Just go to betterhelp.com/besteverfood. Now, on to the show. In this video, I'm returning to the Washington State Fair for the ultimate cheat day. I thought this was gonna be a stunt food, inedible, but no. This is the most expensive baked potato I've ever seen in my life. But let me back up. State fairs aren't about being healthy or balanced. Take a look at that hot Cheeto action. They're about pushing the limits of what's possible, sending your dopamine levels flying higher than your insulin, and making you crave for foods you didn't even know existed. For your Toasty Locos, how loco are they? Wow, my taste buds are just not trained up for this. Today, I'm on a mission to disregard the calories and cholesterol in search of the most over-the-top delicious destinations I can find. This bite is probably worth $1. Let's go for it. And it all starts here. Behind me, our first location, Hattie Mae's Southern Delight. Last time I was here, oh my gosh, I sunk my teeth into their crispy, biscuit-battered shrimp. I'm calling it now. This is the new shrimp and grits. Now, we're gearing up for a heart-stopping calorie bomb that will surely make my cardiologist demand a raise. Introducing mac and cheese with a bit of a Southern twist. At this stall, America's favorite comfort food takes flight with the addition of crawfish. Down in the deep south, crawfish are the star of any good cook-up. Oh, yes! Prepared and boiled in epic proportions, these guys pack a single bite of sweet, soft meat, kind of like a tiny lobster. Now, these mud bugs have made their way up north, and they've joined this blend of noodles and creamy cheese. Do you have somebody in the back with a bunch of crayfish and a toothpick?
We buy them already pre-made. With the amount of sales we go through, there's no way we could keep up by trying to boil the crawfish ourselves.
You know what? It was a fake question. I assumed the audience would assume that.
Sure.
I knew the whole time. All right, right here we have our mac and cheese, and the crawfish are already mixed inside. Hit it with some oiled cured peppers, and that is ready to go. My blood pressure might regret it later, but to spice things up, I'm taking our meal to the next level with Mitch's ultimate bestseller.
I'm not sure why, but alligator kebab is by far our most popular item.
I get it. This is gooey duck territory, not alligator territory. So maybe people in Louisiana would be blown away by the gooey ducks.
Show me you got some.
How do you make the alligator kebab?
We soak the gator tenderloin in buttermilk, some spices for 7 days, stick it on a kebab with onions, and then we basically funnel cake batter. Then we deep fry it and serve it with like a sweet mustard. Got a little bit of horseradish in there as well, and then top it with a little bit of blackening spice.
I never knew that alligator was on my list for cheat days, but now it absolutely is. This looks awesome. I can't wait to try it out. Right here we have my first meal of the day, and it is a heavy one. Come take a look at this. Now that we're in the light, you can see, I love the color of the peppers on top, and then we got that mac and cheese looking oily, creamy, and rich. I was hoping they would have several strips of crawfish tails just laying on top, but no, they're all buried within. Cheers. Super creamy. And then a bit of spice coming from those peppers on top. Sour and hot. That's a nice contrast to the cheese because the sourness kind of cuts through the heaviness of this right here. I got a tail on that one. I gotta say, I like it. You know, crawfish can have a little bit different flavor. Almost be a little bit muddy sometimes. This ain't like that at all. Right here, the alligator. Come take a look at this. Now, I've had alligator before, but I've never had anything like this. And also, you know, putting the onions on there, it's almost like we have onion rings as well. This looks so good. Let's go for it. It's delicious. Super juicy, succulent, quite salty. But that batter on there is really nice, really crispy, and it holds in the juices. It's like when you eat a mozzarella stick and the juices from the cheese just explode out. It's the alligator version of that. It's not quite chicken, because it's more juicy. It's not quite fish. It's not flaky. It's something in between. I'm gonna hit it in the sauce right here. The sauce is almost like a honey mustard. It's sweet, it's mustardy. Oh, there's a clown. Do you think that guy rode here on that little bike? Oh, look what he's got.
In this episode of How Medicine Works, we take a closer look at paracetamol. Paracetamol is...
Oh no. Come on over. I got some mac and cheese filled with crawfish.
Crawfish? Well, that was crawfish then.
Stop eating the most expensive part of my dish.
You still got the vegetable. That's the good stuff.
Ever wonder what makes hearts race or makes taste buds do the tango? It's the sizzling, crispy wonders that come straight from this golden oil. Welcome back to Totally Fried.
I'm here with Mitch. Again?
Last time we were here, I took a flavorful plunge into the world of deep-fried pork belly.
Wow, what a mix of emotions.
But there's much more sizzle and pop here to find. Deep-fried pickles, even deep-fried Snickers. But what's stealing the spotlight as the most decadent would have to be their deep-fried cheesecake.
What is the secret behind a good fried cheesecake?
I mean, you gotta make sure it's a balance between not too sweet, a little bit creamy, the right amount of cream cheese.
We'll find out.
The cheesecake alone is a clandestine affair between a velvety dream and a naughty slice of heaven. And the transformation that's about to be performed here is a one-way ticket to dessert nirvana.
Right now we're in the kitchen and I'm about to see how this cheesecake is battered and fried. Submerge the entire thing, get a nice thick layer of corn dog batter, and let it slowly descend into that hot oil. Looks like this one's ready. It's perfectly golden brown. So our cheesecake is done being fried, but it is not done. First, some whipped cream. Then, hit it with some chocolate. Then, an avalanche of powdered sugar. And that is complete. I've seen fried cheesecake around the country and I just never had the nerve to try it out because I thought, fried cheesecake, I already know what to expect. It's gonna be a wedge of cheesecake, they're gonna fry it. But no, here, it's something a bit unexpected. First of all, whipped cream from a can. If you guys ever saw my house tour, you'll know that I love whipped cream in a can. It's very nice. Tastes just like whipped cream in a can. Where do we start? Okay, I'm gonna just go right down the middle, rip it open. Take a look at that. That is a load of cheesecake. That already would be a delicious, satisfying dessert on its own. I like the cheesecake is still cold on the inside and it's warm and crunchy on the outside. Let's try it out. First of all, man, that cheesecake is awesome. It's just like a sweet cream cheese. And when it comes to this batter, thicker is better. This is a heavy food, not just heavy like it has a lot of fat, like it weighs 2 pounds in my hands. And so you need a strong coating of batter that can handle all that weight, like me when I put on a Speedo. All right, this is my final bite. I've got some of the cheesecake inside, some of that batter, and then some whipped cream on top. Cheers, let's go for it. It's good quality cheesecake. This is wild. I honestly can't believe he's charging like 10 bucks. That's the same you pay at a restaurant. And you know, state fairs are notorious for ripping people off. So it's a good price. It's a lot of food. Bring your extended family. You're gonna need help with this one.
You want to know the ultimate secret to taming your inner sweets craving monster? Simply become best friends with Mitch, the mad genius behind 25 food stalls at these here fairgrounds.
Are you looking for staff? Because I worked at Applebee's. I did get fired.
You can do it today, sure, but after that, we'll fire you.
Okay.
Our next stop, the Big Cheese, is one of his absolute masterpieces.
No cheat day would be complete without dessert or without cheese. That's what they're serving here behind me. They have cheese, everything. Fried cheese curds, a giant fried mozzarella stick, jumbo cheddar stuffed tater tots. Then they have what I came here for, the cheddar cheese ice cream. Let's go inside and see him poop it out of a machine. The owner would love if I described it as pooping out the ice cream.
If you think this is just your run-of-the-mill ordinary cheese ice cream, well then, my foodie friends, you are in for a surprise. This goes beyond being a dessert. It's a wild fusion, so gloriously unhealthy that your taste buds will throw a party while your nutritionist runs away screaming.
So our recipe here begins with the streusel, a streusel that will soon be adorned with cheddar ice cream.
Now crown the supreme dessert overlord with a dollop of golden soft serve cheddar cheese ice cream.
We have our dessert right here. I love that you can come here and get a cheese appetizer, a cheese meal, and a cheese dessert. So we've got streusel and some melted ice cream on there too. Let's try it out. Magical, flaky, crunchy, melty, cinnamon, apple. It's delicious, but that's not why we came here. We came here for the ice cream that has almost melted already. I wish I could soft serve this right into my mouth. Huh. I wonder if this is how they made it. It tastes like generic white ice cream, but they added Kraft macaroni and cheese powder mix into it. That would give it the color, and that's the kind of flavor it has. It has that kind of like beautiful powder chemical cheese flavor to it. Makes the cheese ice cream with some strudel. I like it. It's very unique. I thought this was gonna be a stunt food, some kind of BS that's inedible, but no. Uh-oh. Oh, dang it. That's gonna screw up the continuity. People are gonna know we shoot out of order.
Perhaps no food is more comforting to Americans than that which comes from our neighbors to the south. And here at Raspados del Sur, Tino is delivering a sinful fiesta feast.
This place was established in 1984, the same year I was established as a human being. Are you the one who started this place? Because you don't seem old enough.
Tino is the second generation maestro behind this brand.
My dad started this business.
Originally, they were all about the cool vibes of shaved ice. Then their menu went loco with vibrant, brightly colored drinks like the
Mango Ñada
or like the
Burrito Locos.
But even with these drinks, it would be a mistake to skip out on the food, especially their Toasty Locos.
Loco is insanity. For your Toasty Locos, how loco are they?
They're pretty crazy. It's a big bunk for one person.
Last time when I was in Mexico City, I had Dorito Locos. What is the difference?
So they started using different kind of chips, and they started naming them after whatever chips, then Locos.
Boom, I am in the kitchen. I've got Mary right here behind me, and she's gonna help me in making the Toasty Locos. And when I say help me, I mean she's gonna do everything. So we've got the Tostitos here. That goes inside. We got mango, cucumber, and jicama. Oh no, they're mixed. I hate cucumber, but just do it. Here we have pickled pork skin and some peanuts for a little bit of texture. Tamarind candy going next. Then we've got chambuy, some Valentina sauce, tahini, and a little bit of salt, just in case we didn't have enough sodium. Finally, a lime. Wow. Tino said this thing is Locos, and he was not lying. This thing looks ridiculous. Let's go outside and try it out. The smell is wild. It smells spicy and like crazy sour. Let's try out the tamarind candy. Wow, sweet, salty, semi-unbearable. That's a lot of flavor in there, my friend. This is pork skin that's been put in vinegar. That's a cool texture. It's kind of like eating calamari. I think it would be a miracle for me to get down there and find a chip. There we go. I got some Tostitos, a nut. Is that a cucumber? It is. Some jicama in there, some pork, a little bit of that crazy sweet and salty tamarind food. The chips give it a generous crunch, as do the peanuts, but I gotta say, guys, this is very sour and very salty. I'd go into salt shock if I ate all this. The best part is she put extra salt. I think the problem is me, my taste buds are just not trained up for this. I gotta say, it's not called the good mental health Tostitos. It's called Toasty Locos. It means insane. It means to be crazy. And this right here fits the bill. The only thing I'm missing is a giant frothy beer.
No cheat day can be complete without a supreme protein that hits a bit different. Look no further than Piggly's Seafood, a stall that's been rocking fairgoers for 50 years.
Just a moment ago, I saw a gentleman with a big industrial-sized bag of lobster. He put it on the flat top and he was smothering it with butter. That is the prime ingredient. Then, after the lobster is ready, it goes into a myriad of different dishes. They've got lobster tacos, they've got lobster french fries, they have lobster rolls, and they have what I'm here for today, the lobster baked potato.
Imagine living in a fever dream you never want to end. That's the magic of lobster stuffed potatoes. It all starts with the sizzling sounds of hundreds of lobster tails hitting the flat top with garlic and butter, creating a haunting symphony that will speak to your soul.
This is where the potato journey begins, right here in this oven, where they're getting nice, steamy, and soft. Wow, mucho grande. So first he cuts it, spreads it open, and that right there is already a lot of food. He hits it with salt, then Alfredo sauce going on next. From here, lobster, a lot of it, oh my gosh. Hit it with a special mayo sauce. Next, some purple onion, scallions, then some Parmesan cheese, and right here is our final product. This is a baked potato for the 1%. This is for the people who fly in private jets and tell you not to drive a car. they're eating this kind of baked potato. I'm gonna try grabbing just a piece of the edge here. Oh, there we go. I've got onions, sauce, mayo, lobster. This bite is probably worth $1. Go for it. Alfredo works really well. Now, the most difficult thing about eating a baked potato is that it can get kind of dry sometimes, and we have plenty of throat lubrication with this Alfredo sauce. Next, lobster bite. Oh my gosh, that is not just one lobster. That's a lobster and a lot of his friends. That's good. That is satisfying, it's juicy, it's buttery. I think they've really nailed the base of this dish, the foundation. If they didn't have a good potato, this thing wouldn't work at all. It's chewy on the outside, it's soft in the inside. I mean, look at this. It just becomes like instant mashed potato as you move around the starchy part. Oh, we've got the perfect bite right here. Alfredo, some potato starch, lots of lobster. Let's try it out.
I know sometimes life can be tough.
Yeah, I was teleported. This, for a cheat day, very satisfying. It's creamy, it's carby, it's got seafood. But our next location has even other stuff. I'm not sure what it has, but we're gonna find out. It kind of looks like a car. Mostly it looks like a guy bent over.
Before my cheat day euphoria tips the scale into full-on regret and self-loathing, I'll end this day on a high in the hands of Mary, the culinary magician behind my wildest cravings. Last time, we indulged in her fiery Nashville hot chicken and her fruity pebble cheese dog. Now, at her Pizza by the Slice booth, it's a carnival of flavors. Mexican corn pizza, pickle pizza, and the one I'm after,
the Hot Cheeto Pizza.
Hot Cheeto Pizza, the fiery daredevil of the pizza universe. Picture this, a crispy golden crust blanketed in a fiery storm of crushed hot Cheetos.
How'd you come up with that idea?
Well, me loving hot Cheetos and me loving pizza, I thought, how can I combine the two? So I take the Cheetos and grind them to a dust so they're nice and fresh, so it still has that nice unique flavor of the hot Cheeto. And then we brush the cheese pizza with a little garlic butter, and then we top it with a hot Cheeto, and there you go.
All right, folks, you know the rules. It's a one-bite taste test. Let's go for it. We got the Route 66 pizza right here. Take a look at that hot Cheeto action. So essentially, it's a cheese pizza, but then they just crusted it with that Cheeto dust. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna grab one right now. I love that they have this giant pizza and they just do 6 slices. So anybody who comes here and gets pizza by the slice, they get a huge piece of pie. This is hard to do with one hand. I was poor knowing I do this. That's wild. Starting from the bottom, excellent dough, pillowy and soft like my abs. On top of that, a nice savory tomato sauce, a pile of cheese, and then just so much of that hot Cheeto dust. You can actually feel it crunching still. The topping was already added like 5 minutes ago. It's still crunchy, but it's spicy too. It is hot. Oh my God, it's so much seasoning. It's salty as heck. I'm gonna take one more bite, fold it in half. You gotta taco it. That is a pizza sensation. Now, could I take down a whole pizza of this? No, it'd be way too much. I mean, there must be a bag and a half of Cheetos on here. But for one slice, it is such a fun new experience. It's crunchy, it's cheesy, it's doughy, all together in one pizza pie. Beyond this, she has the pickle pizza. She has the Mexican corn pizza. I'm very curious to see what she does in the future with her new pizza creations. But this was awesome. Plus, one slice, $10. That ain't that bad. Boom, and that is the end of our ultimate cheat day here at the Washington State Fair. What's next? Salad, vegetables, regret, bloating, diarrhea. Sorry. If I had to pick a favorite from this cheat day, a food that I would love to try again, it would be a tie between the lobster baked potato and the alligator kebabs. The alligator kebabs really brought it. They were greasy, juicy, crispy, and then they had a great sauce to go with them. But really, I enjoyed everything and trying all these people's unique, imaginative innovations.
If you love Indian food, then you're gonna love our new channel, Best Ever Food India. Subscribe now for weekly videos showcasing the most unique street food from around the country.
What's your name?
Smarter than I look. Lanky, nice to meet you.
Lanky. I'm greasy.
Some boys, you never know where their hands have been.
This is mac and cheese filled with crawfish.
Crawfish?
You don't like crawfish?
I don't know, hold on. You just gotta get it clean, because that's how Mama does it.
That's how Mama does it.
Yeah, Mama does it just like that. She will, here, you got something on your face, and she goes to clean it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Mama slobber, clown slobber, all good.
Okay, well, I don't really need any more demonstrations, but do you want to give it a try? Now, for folks who haven't had alligator, it's really similar to frog. No? Oh, okay. Check out this marketing. What's cool is you can rip off the top, and then you can walk around and be a mascot for this place. For free dollars. Who am I, though? I'm the hairy yellow guy. I think he's a regional mascot. Maybe like the Paul Bunyan of Washington, I'm not sure. Normal. Was that a transformer? I don't understand. I can't bring my katana to the fair, but you can literally just be a car? How is that fair? Guys, this has been 6 different days at the fair, 2 videos in New York, 2 videos in Minnesota, and now ending the second video here in Washington. I hope you enjoyed this fun state fair series across the country. Let me know downstairs in the comments, should we do it again? Should we hit up other state fairs throughout the country? If not, I still might do it anyways, because it's a lot of fun for me and super easy. All the food is like really near each other. Anyways, that is it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Peace. Let's go find a toilet. All right.
Yeah, your teams are livers, but their processes, though... With Monday.com, things can be different, and here's how. First, you can easily...
Imagine you were standing on a massive sheet of ice floating in the North Atlantic Ocean, and your ship and only salvation was impossible to see in the snowstorm that surrounded you, and every minute that went by was 1 minute closer to the frozen night, during which some of the men with you wouldn't wake up in the morning. This is the horrifying story of the 1914 sealing disaster. As always, viewer discretion is advised. The commercial sealing industry was a thriving one early in the 20th century for the island of Newfoundland, which is a little island on the east coast of Canada. And Newfoundland's capital city, St. John's, couldn't have been more perfectly placed geographically for sealing companies. Exiting the harbor there put ships right into the North Atlantic Ocean, which was abundant with their catch, which was seals. In recent decades, seal hunting's become highly controversial, and for good reason, but more than 100 years ago, it quite literally built communities like St. John's. A significant percentage of its population were either actual seal hunters or worked for a sealing company in some capacity, so it was hugely relied upon by many. As you might imagine, the work of the average seal hunter was as grueling as it was gruesome. It was messy, physical work with little safety regulation, typical of the time period. This often resulted in overworked crews that spent up to 12 hours straight on sheets of ice known as ice floes. Because that's where seals spend most of their time, seal hunters would be dropped off on the ice and then have to walk miles to reach these herds. Then after a successful hunt, they'd have to walk the same distance back to the ship. This was standard practice because seal herds would get spooked if a ship just pulled up alongside them. In addition to that, ships could only get as close as their equipment would allow in the thick ice. And this is all before taking the unpredictable weather of the North Atlantic into account. Strong storms could hit with little warning, and this is especially true as seasons transition between fall and winter and spring. In April, these ice floes, which can grow up to 6 miles wide, start to melt and become fragile or break apart entirely. This allows ships to get through the ice much easier than in the colder months, but that's only if a ship has strong ice-breaking capabilities. Icebreaker ships have a specially shaped and reinforced bow to help break apart and push the ice out of the way. Even with that special hull, ships could still get stuck, but this was especially true for those with a traditional hull. They could easily get stuck in the ice for days, and that is exactly what happened to the SS Newfoundland during the last days of March 1914. Built in 1872, the Newfoundland was a cargo ship with a pretty average capacity, and at no point did icebreaking come up in the design plans. This is because there was just no reason to put an icebreaking hull on a cargo ship, since they can simply move to a more southern shipping lane in the winter. Sealing ships, on the other hand, had no choice since ice is where the seals are. After spending the first part of its career lugging cargo as it was designed, the Newfoundland was bought and repurposed as a sealing ship. Without an ice-breaking hull, though, it was a sealing ship in name only. In addition to that, among the other ships in the area, the Newfoundland was one of the smaller ones at just 212 feet long with a beam just 29 feet wide. It also had a 2-cylinder compound steam engine that maxed out at only 130 horsepower. This did next to nothing to assist in clearing any ice from the ship's path. Basically, compared to a purpose-built sealing ship, the Newfoundland's captain and crew were at a serious disadvantage. So on March 30th, 1914, the Newfoundland ground to a halt while trying to work its way through an ice floe. The ship's captain on this run was Westbury Keene, the 27-year-old son of Abram Keene. In any other world, someone his age in that position was unheard of, but because of his father, he was pretty much guaranteed a promising career in sealing. This was because Abram wasn't just a ship captain, he was sort of a legend in the industry. Later, when he started a family, he had his sons alongside him on the bridge as soon as they were old enough. It was only a matter of time before they became captains of their own ships. As Westbury looked out of his binoculars while his crew struggled in vain to free the ship, he spotted his father's ship, the SS Stefano, in the distance. Abram and Westbury worked for competing sealing companies, so despite their relationship, helping one another was strictly prohibited. But they did it anyway. Knowing they were under the microscope of the entire Newfoundland sealing industry though, they were discreet in their communication, so they came up with a signal. If either of them had spotted a seal herd, that ship would raise its derrick, which is a wooden crane on the deck used for loading and unloading. If the derrick was raised on one ship, the other would head in that direction, and since a raised derrick wasn't anything out of the ordinary for a ship, it was perfectly inconspicuous. As Westbury focused in on the Stefano, he suddenly wished he and his father had developed a signal for needing help getting unstuck from the ice. Because while assisting a competitor in finding seal herds was a no-no, ships could give or receive help in an emergency from any ship. Unlike the Newfoundland, the Stefano was a powerful icebreaker, which would have been extremely helpful, especially considering the ship had no radio. In fact, wireless communication was installed in ships almost by default around this time, but sealing companies didn't invest in these very expensive systems. The company who owned the ship had one installed to see if it would boost revenue by helping ships coordinate, but after several months with no change, they had it removed and then sold. To make the situation even more frustrating, when Westbury could see the deck of the Stefano clearly, he spotted its derrick in the raised position. This meant that not only were they stuck, but they might miss out on whatever herd that his father had spotted. This left him with a difficult decision to make. He had to decide if he should try to send his crew to the Stefano on foot or just chalk this up as a missed opportunity. If there were only a few miles between the ships, there'd be nothing to consider, but Westbury estimated the distance to the Stefano to be between 5 and 7 miles. It wasn't unheard of to send crew that far, but that kind of distance created a lot of inefficient work, and that was a lot of time dedicated to a single hunt. In fact, if the signal had come from anyone but his father, he would have just kept his men aboard, but he knew that his father knew how to find large seal herds, which would make the extra distance worth it. While discussing this with Thomas Dawson, who was one of his masters of watch, Westbury made his decision and told Thomas that he was going to send the men to the Stefano on foot first thing in the morning. Since it would likely be a long day with a lot of work to do, Westbury told Thomas the crew could just stay the night on the Stefano instead of walking back the same day. Thomas then spread the word among the other men, and at 7 o'clock the next morning, 166 of the Newfoundland's crew gathered on the ice around their ship. The last man off was Westbury's second hand, George Tuft, who would be in command of the crew on the hunt. He was given orders to report to the Stefano and then get the location of the seal herd, and with that, the men set off across the ice. As Westbury watched the crew leave, he felt even more confident that this was the right decision. That morning was overcast with very little wind, visibility was also great, and the temperature was mild. Unfortunately, even despite these good conditions, the crew ran into problems almost immediately after leaving. Because of the warm spring weather, the ice floes were littered with weak spots. Every step the men took needed to be a cautious one, and the longer this went on, the longer the trek took. And even though they were careful, inevitably some of the men crashed through the ice into the freezing Atlantic before the crewmates would rush over to pull them out. When they were pulled back up onto solid ice, the soaked men had no choice but to continue on with the rest of the crew. To make matters worse, if the Stefano was somewhere between the 5 to 7 miles, like Westbury believed, the walk should have taken around 2.5 hours to complete. But it wasn't until 10 o'clock, 3 hours after the left, when they reached just the halfway point. Thankfully, from there on, the ice was smooth and solid, so they could at least pick up the pace, but getting to that point had been exhausting. Around this time as well, a light snow began to fall, and while this was far from out of the ordinary, some of the men expressed concerns that things might get worse when they noticed how much the temperature had dropped since they left. Then, when some of the crewmen toward the back of the group had killed and collected 6 stray seals along the walk, they decided to take them back to the Newfoundland right away, rather than drag them the rest of the way to the Stefano. Others within earshot used this as an opportunity to abandon the mission too. Throughout the walk as well, the Stefano remained in sight, but as the crew closed in on it, the ship seemed to just move farther away. This prompted another handful of crewmen to also use this as justification to head back. Then another group used the increasingly bad weather as a reason to turn around too, so in total, 34 of the crew would turn back before ever reaching the Stefano. The rest of the crew continued on, but because they were so spread out, many of the men near the front didn't even know so many had turned back. Either way, thanks to the improved ice conditions on the second half of the trek and the Stefano eventually seeing them and closing the distance, the first of the Newfoundland crew arrived at the ship around 11:30 am, about 4.5 hours after they set off. As the crew came on board, Abram was there to personally welcome them and invite them inside for tea and bread, but because he was distracted, he didn't realize how exhausted they were. His focus was on his own ship's operations, and his much larger crew was split up on the ice floes all around the area. So while his demeanor was kind and warm, he couldn't hide how anxious he was to get back to his own work. Once all 132 remaining crewmen from the Newfoundland were aboard, Abram ordered the ship to the seal herd's last known location. About 20 minutes later, the Stefano came to a stop, and then Abram reappeared in front of the crew and ordered them to finish up their food and then return to the ice for the hunt. Now, here is where the first of a series of mistakes was made that would have catastrophic consequences. The night before, Abram's first officer also estimated the distance between the two ships to be between 5 and 7 miles, and he told the captain that the walk should take the Newfoundland crew no more than 2.5 hours to reach them if Westbury ended up sending them. Unfortunately, no one with the Newfoundland crew told Abram or anyone else what time they'd actually left that morning. Based on when they got there, it was assumed that they left around 9 o'clock. Abram had no idea that they actually started walking 2 hours earlier than that when he ordered them off the ship after less than a half-an-hour break. However, the crew didn't argue, nor would they, considering who the order was coming from, so they finished their tea and started to filter back outside. When they reached the deck, though, they couldn't believe their eyes. When they boarded, the crew could easily spot the Newfoundland in the distance. By then, it looked like someone had wrapped a big white curtain around the entire ship. As this was happening, George met with Abram on deck to get his orders and also saw how much the storm had progressed, and for a fleeting moment even wondered if he should refuse the orders. He then turned to Abram and asked him what he thought the weather might do. In response, Abram told him that things would pass and there was nothing to worry about. And because of Abram's reputation and experience, George immediately trusted what he said to be true. During their discussion as well, Abram told George which direction to go and told him to collect 1,500 seal pelts before calling it a day. He also told him that the area they'd be going was about 2 miles closer to the Newfoundland than where they were. Because of this, he also told George to just head back to the Newfoundland when their work was done instead of staying the night on the Stefano. After their conversation, George left the Stefano with the others and began to walk in the direction of the herd. After about 15 minutes of walking, Thomas met up with George to ask what Abram had told him, and George went on to explain how many pelts they were supposed to collect and then where to go after. Immediately, Thomas was taken aback by the instructions to return to the Newfoundland. Westbury had told Thomas the opposite. Unfortunately, before he could argue, they came upon the seal herd, so the men ended their conversation and got to work. Incredibly, only a few minutes into the job, conditions had gotten so bad so quickly that George gathered the officers to discuss what to do. And unanimously, due to the cold and whiteout conditions, they decided to abandon the mission and return to the Newfoundland immediately. Even though it was just afternoon, some of the crewmen were already in bad shape because of how unprepared they were for the weather they were caught in. Sealing being the physical work it is, seal hunters were notorious for underdressing and traveling light. With how comfortable morning temperatures had been, many of the men didn't even wear coats or hats, and those who fell through the ice on the walk to the Stefano were already visibly shivering. This meant that everyone was either exhausted, cold, soaking wet, or some combination of the three. Seal hunters also rarely brought food with them, so in addition to everything else, the men were hungry. Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot George could do about it other than try to get them back to the Newfoundland as quickly as possible. Before they set off, George met with Thomas again and asked him to lead the group in a southeasterly direction. Visibility was near zero, so rather than navigate back to the ship by sight, Thomas would have to rely on his compass. Based on where Abram had told him they were, heading southeast would bring them to the path they took to reach the Stefano that morning. Once they got there, George estimated they'd be about 1.5 miles away from the Newfoundland, and all they'd need to do is follow the path until they reached it. George then walked to the back of the group to help anyone who was walking slower and ensure no one was left behind. But what George didn't know was that they were not where he thought they were. Abram had made a mistake calculating their position. After almost 3 hours of walking to the southeast, finally the men got to the trail they were on that morning. They knew that's where they were because there was a flag belonging to the Stefano that was fixed into the ice to mark several seal pelts. When George got to the intersection though, something wasn't right to him. He realized the flag they stumbled on was the path, but this was 1.5 miles from the Stefano, not the Newfoundland. That meant they were at least 3.5 miles away from the Newfoundland still. But although this was frustrating, they had no other option, so George told Thomas to just keep going. By this point, everyone was beginning to walk a little slower, but then all of a sudden, they heard the sound of a blaring ship whistle, which they recognized as the Newfoundland. When the whistle went silent, the men screamed as loudly as they could, hoping that their ship would hear them and continue blowing the whistles so they could use the sound to guide them back. This was standard practice in low visibility, but after the whistle blew again 5 minutes later, that was the last time they heard it. This is likely because everyone in the Newfoundland was under the impression that the crew was safe on the Stefano, as they had agreed. In fact, it's unclear why it was even sounded in the first place. However, at the very least, hearing it those couple of times confirmed they were heading in the right direction. As if things couldn't get any worse, as the walk continued and the sun was setting, Thomas lost the path. So, completely off course in the dark, with the snow falling heavily, George had to consider whether it was better to stop for the night or keep going. Horrifyingly, no matter what he decided, men would die. Continuing on meant that they'd have to walk for miles, in the dark, on the ice, where men would fall through into the water. On the other hand, staying the night on the ice meant that some of the men wouldn't wake up in the morning. This meant he had to decide between some of his men drowning or some of his men simply not waking up in the morning. He eventually decided to stop for the night rather than risk the ice. The crew then split into 3 groups and made preparations for the night. Shelters were then built from loose pieces of ice and fires were lit using ropes and flags. Before long, the ice was quiet and the crewmen were fast asleep. A little while later, the winds changed direction and the snow turned to freezing rain. Since some of the men built up only one side of their shelter to block the wind, and none of them were able to build a roof with what little they had, the men were pelted with freezing rain afterward. At first light on April 1st, the crewmen who made it through the night began to wake up. Those who were awake huddled together for warmth while they kept their eyes on the ice shelters scattered around them. Each time someone got up and joined them, there was a slight sense of relief, but as the minutes went by, the men stopped waking up. The others went around and checked each of the shelters, but none of the men still inside were just sleeping. George didn't even need a head count to know that things were far worse than he imagined. Overnight, almost half the crew had frozen to death. And unfortunately, there was no time to let it sink in. George then had the men gather the bodies for the Newfoundland to pick up later. When the dead were stacked together, the remaining crew turned and continued their walk. The freezing rain overnight turned back into snow in the morning, so George and Thomas had to go right back to relying on a compass. However, thankfully, for the first time since they left the ship the previous morning, the crew finally had some good luck. During the early afternoon, the snow slowed and then stopped altogether. Because of this, George expected to see the ship when visibility improved, but the only ship any of them could see was the SS Bellaventure. This was another sealing ship that was back to work now that the weather cleared. And this ship was about 2 miles to the northwest, so back in the direction they had just come. George was sure that the Newfoundland was further to the southeast, but because it was far enough it was out of sight, he had no choice but to try to make it to the Bellaventure instead. When they were within a mile of this new ship, excitement began to grow among the crew. The night spent on the ice was sort of the opposite of restful, and the men didn't have much left physically or mentally. This temporary boost of energy was just enough to get them the rest of the way to the ship, and then, when the Bellaventure started steaming toward the crowd of men on the ice, the relief was overwhelming. They were saved. With a quarter mile between the men and the ship, they could see the crew of the Bellaventure busy at work loading seals onto the deck. Then, a moment later, the ship's crew was back on board, and then, unbelievably, the Bellaventure began to move away from them. The men waved their hands and shouted to get the attention of the crew they could clearly see on the deck, but between their focus on their work and the sound of the ship's engine, the crew on the ship never saw the crew on the ice. Had the Newfoundland crew been spotted, they would have been aboard the Bellaventure within just 15 minutes. As you might imagine, this was devastating, and it seemed to be the last straw for many of the crewmen in the worst shape. While they turned back to the southeast, the delirium of hypothermia became apparent. There is a condition known as paradoxical undressing that occurs with advanced hypothermia. This is when physiological changes cause the person to feel extremely hot instead of extremely cold, and causes them to remove their clothing to cool down, or if there's a body of water nearby, to jump in it to cool down. So as they continued, every so often, the men would whip around when they heard the splash of a crewmate either jumping into the water intentionally or falling through accidentally. When it seemed all hope was lost, miraculously, another ship came into view and it was heading directly toward them. As it got closer, they recognized it as the Stefano. Abram or one of his men must have spotted them. After the deflating ship setting a few hours earlier, the crewmen had another surge of energy, seeing the Stefano heading in their direction. This time, they didn't even wait until the ship was close enough to start waving and screaming, but then, when the ship was less than a mile away, it turned. The panicked crew tried to wave harder and scream louder, but they realized the Stefano hadn't seen them after all. By then, the sun was setting and it was becoming clear they'd have to spend another night on the ice, during which more of the men would freeze and wouldn't wake up the following day. Between all the sightings and their worsening condition, the situation was as chaotic as it was hopeless. This was then only compounded by the fact that moments later, another ship was spotted, and because of everything going on, the men weren't even sure if they were hallucinating. But sure enough, the ship really was there, and this time it was the Newfoundland. Unfortunately, George estimated that it was about 4 to 6 miles away. There was just no way the men could walk that far after all they'd been through, not to mention they'd once again have to cross a very dangerous stretch of ice. George thought about it and then walked over to meet with Thomas about what to do next, but it was immediately apparent that Thomas was in bad shape. During their conversation, he realized that this might be as far as many of the men could go, yet at the same time it was more urgent than ever that he could get on any ship he could. It was then that he made a decision. Thomas and the men who could go no further would stay where they were for the night, while he led another group that was more fit to continue on. At most, he figured it would take the smaller group no more than 4 hours to reach the Newfoundland. Once they got there, they'd immediately return to rescue the others. George then announced the plan to the remaining men and asked those who were willing and able to join him. He expected about half of them to stay and half of them to continue walking, but only 9 other men stepped forward. This was bad. If more than 50 men were in such bad shape that another night on the ice felt like a better option than being on the Newfoundland in a few hours, things were worse than he thought. Either way, once the men were ready, they set off once again across the ice. The first part of the walk went faster than George expected, but he knew the pace would slow down once the ice changed again. At the midway point, they took their first steps onto the more treacherous section of ice. Every so often, George would look up to use the Newfoundland's position as a visual guide. Then, after a few rounds of this, George lifted his eyes, and to his horror, the Newfoundland was no longer directly in front of him. Throughout that same afternoon, Westbury kept watching the bridge and was uncharacteristically anxious about the status of his crew. The men hadn't returned in the hours after the storm dissipated, and then when night fell, his concern shifted to pure dread. He was completely helpless to do anything about it. His ship was still stuck, and there was no way of contacting any other ship. As he waited, hoping to see anyone coming across the ice, the only thing he could do was constantly push his ship to break free. Him and his crew tried in vain for hours to get the Newfoundland free until finally they heard a sharp cracking sound sometime in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the engine wasn't just spinning in place, the ship was finally moving for the first time in 3 days. When it was finally out, they steamed off toward the last known location of the crew. Unfortunately, the small group of men led by George was just 30 minutes from boarding the ship when they watched it steam away into the distance. Back on the ice with the group waiting, the men didn't even have to wait until morning to start counting bodies. Before many of them had even laid down for the night, several more had died. The men who were in better shape carried the bodies as they found them and stacked them in one spot like they had done that morning. Horrifyingly, because they were certain he wouldn't make it through the night, the crew stacked the bodies around Thomas, who was one of the few unconscious men still alive at the time. Then, as if 3 devastating moments believing they were saved wasn't enough, the Belle Venture once again came into view. Regardless, they tried getting the attention of the ship's crew, either those aboard the ship or the ones waiting on the ice to be picked up after their hunt. As they screamed, the air around them began to cloud up. The Belle Venture was actually so close to them that the smoke billowing out of its stacks was being blown by the wind directly at the Newfoundland crew, and this obscured them from sight. So once again, when the crew were aboard, the Belle Venture turned and steamed away. At first light the following morning, with his group of 9, George immediately got up and looked around for any ship in sight and saw 2. One was the Belle Venture, which had only moved to spend the night in a better position for the next day's work. The other was the Newfoundland, which was again somewhere between 4 and 6 miles away. He was also relieved to see that all 9 men with him made it through the night, but by then, 7 men didn't feel like they could go any further. George then noted their location and then set off with the other 2 toward the Newfoundland. A little while later, the 7 men who stayed behind noticed that the Belle Venture was much closer than where it was when they woke up, and it wasn't nearly as far as the Newfoundland. Because of this, 2 of them felt like they had just enough energy to reach it, so they headed off in that direction. So as a quick recap, because I know there are a lot of moving pieces, by this point there were 5 groups. The first are the ones that passed away on the first night that were left on the ice. The second are those that stayed behind with Thomas after they couldn't go any further. Then there is George's group of 9, which splintered into a further 3 groups. From these 3, the first are once again the ones that couldn't go any further. Then there is George and 2 others heading toward the Newfoundland, and the final group is a group of 2 heading toward the Belle Venture because it got closer to them. In any case, later that morning, Abram stood on the bridge of a ship scanning the ice around him for seals or a group of his men to pick up. As he was doing this, the door to the wheelhouse flew open and the wireless operator rushed in and handed him a slip of paper. The captain looked down at it and almost immediately yelled an order to the wheelman to change course. The wheelman then spun the wheel as far as it would go and had the engine go full steam ahead. The slip of paper still in Abrams' hand was a message from the Bonaventure requesting any ships in the area that could come help assist in the rescue of the stranded members of the Newfoundland's crew. Those final 2 men had actually managed to get to the Bonaventure. At the same time, aboard the Newfoundland, Westbury was almost a mirror image of his father, standing on the bridge while looking back and forth across the ice. Then he spotted 3 black dots in the distance. He raised his binoculars and immediately recognized George. Unfortunately, he couldn't risk moving toward them when the ship might get stuck, so he could only pace the deck as he waited for the 3 men. When they were finally aboard, George told Westbury exactly where 2 groups of men were left alive. There wasn't much the Newfoundland could do because of its poor ability to navigate the ice, but thankfully, it wouldn't need to. The entire Bonaventure crew was already on the ice, armed with stretchers, food, and coffee. The Newfoundland crewmen who could do so walked aboard the Bonaventure under their own power, but many of them couldn't move due to severe frostbite on their legs. Soon after, the Stefano and another sealing ship, the SS Florizel, arrived to help load up the rest of the survivors. The ordeal was finally over after 54 hours. Then, once everyone alive was on board, the crews got to work loading the ships with the ones who passed away. Morbidly, because the ships were full, the bodies had to be stacked on the deck like seals waiting to be stowed in the hull. As this was happening, back in St. John's, panic had broken out. The Bonaventure sent word of the tragedy intended for the hospital so they could prepare, but news leaked and spread throughout the city. On April 3rd, the entire city had to effectively shut down because thousands of people flooded telegraph offices and crowds blocked the streets waiting for any updates from the Bonaventure. The following day, those same thousands that crowded the streets the day before were at the harbor waiting for the first sight of the ships. When they were close enough, the entire crowd broke out in hysterics. Still on the bow was a tall and obvious stack of corpses. Tragically, this is how some of the family members of the deceased men learned the fate of their loved ones. When the ship was docked, it took several hours for each of the survivors to carefully be taken off the ship and transported to the hospital. In all, only 55 of the 132 men that made it to the Stefano on March 31st lived to make it back, and one of them would pass away in the hospital days later, putting the death toll at 78. As if by fate, at the exact same time the crew of the Newfoundland was fighting for their lives, another ship, the SS Southern Cross, amplified the tragedy. It was loaded with more than 35,000 seal pellets, which is believed to have been more than it could handle, and it sank, taking all 174 men to the bottom of the ocean. All told, St. John's lost 251 men in the first days of April 1914. When the rest arrived at the hospital, the battle for some of them was far from over. Every single one of the 55 men who returned on the Bonaventure suffered from extensive injuries that were either life-threatening or life-altering. Nearly all of them needed to have a limb or appendage amputated due to frostbite, like Thomas, who would lose both of his legs. George was one of the very few who came back in relatively good physical condition, but he had another battle that was just getting started. When the dust settled, Newfoundland formed a committee to investigate the disaster. Since no one survived on the Southern Cross, many of the details of its sinking are still a mystery to this day, and it also caused the Newfoundland to be the sole focus of the inquiry. After several months of interviews, the commission's report was released, and it was damning for George, Westbury, and Abram. They did manage to avoid criminal charges because there was no singular cause named by the report, but there was still a lot of blame to go around. The report went on to detail inconsistencies in each of their accounts of those 4 days in the North Atlantic. Westbury claimed he instructed George to take shelter with the Stefano for the night, but George testified that he didn't recall being told that. He said his orders were to take the men to the Stefano and receive orders from Abram. George was also criticized for not refusing Abram's orders once he saw how bad the weather was, and the commission found him guilty of poor judgment. Westbury was guilty of the same moral charge, but came out of the report a little more favorably. Because he had so little information at his disposal, the report noted the company that owned the ship set the captain up to fail. This left the brunt of the blame to be placed on Abram. He was found guilty of the same poor judgment, but the evidence to support the commission's decision was much more extensive than it had against George and Westbury. In the end, the committee faulted Abram for 3 things. The first was sending the Newfoundland's men back onto the ice after only 20 minutes of rest. Second was sending them onto the ice at all given the conditions, and then finally for giving George the order to return to the Newfoundland after their work was done. But nothing damaged Abram's reputation more than his botched calculations for where the Stefano was going to drop the men off. Any experienced captain should know how to chart an accurate course, and this error set the disaster in motion since George made all his calculations based off the incorrect ones he received from Abram. Despite this, Abram would spend another 20 years in sealing, and he regained much of the respect he lost as a result of the disaster. He would go on to retire, having captured more than 1 million seal pelts. In the aftermath, the combined disasters of the Newfoundland and the Southern Cross sparked sweeping changes to the sealing industry in the British colonies and elsewhere, among many other regulations intended to improve crew safety. If you made it this far, thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Sean, and welcome to Scary Interesting. If you have a story suggestion, I'd love to hear it, and you can submit it to the form found in the description, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. If you've ever played a game of Broken Telephone, you know how impossible it seems that a simple message can get so confused in just the course of a few people. Now imagine what can happen when the details of already strange and confusing disappearances are relayed over the course of decades. So, in this video, we're going to look at some of the most confusing disappearances in history. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On April 24th, 1856, Joseph and George were about to enjoy a meal with their father, Samuel, in the family's modest cabin about 50 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Their mother, Susanna, was there too, but she was attending to chores while the boys ate. As Samuel and his sons were about to dig in, the family dog Sport began barking like he often did when something outside caught his attention. They all figured it was a squirrel or a fox or maybe a tasty rabbit, all of which were common in the area. Now, feeding a family was no easy matter in rural Pennsylvania in the 1850s, so Samuel grabbed his rifle and followed Sport outside to see if something edible was nearby. It's not clear whether he told Joseph and George to stay put or what Susanna was doing when he left, but the boys probably couldn't resist the urge to join the hunt and left without telling their mother. When Susanna finally noticed they were gone, she must have figured that they were with their father and that everyone would come back shortly. But then when Samuel came back, he assured her that the boys hadn't been with them and that he hadn't even seen them. Due to their ages and just generally how dangerous it was to be out in the wilderness for extended time, Samuel and Susanna began searching immediately, but despite scouring the area and calling the boys' names until their voices gave out, they got no reply. As nightfall approached, the situation became increasingly serious, and Samuel eventually ran to a neighbor's home and asked if they could spread the word that the boys were missing and that he and Susanna needed help. By some accounts, hundreds of eager searchers had materialized by the following morning, and other sources claim it was thousands. Whatever the number, some came from as far as 50 miles away. Again, this type of travel was no small feat in the 1850s, and the response shows just how tight-knit the community was and how determined the volunteers were to find the missing boys. Searchers teamed up in small groups and hacked their way through the forest from sunup to sundown, and then at the end of each long day, they prepared large fires and carried torches through the woods, yelling their names. But, unfortunately, their calls went unanswered, and with temperatures dropping drastically at night, it seemed unlikely that the boys would be found alive. Even so, the volunteers soldiered on and continually expanded the search area in case the boys were moving in the opposite direction. It's worth noting, however, that the search was limited to the west side of a creek near the family's cabin. The reason for this is that pretty much everyone agreed that the boys couldn't have crossed the creek without drowning because it was abnormally large that spring from all the snowmelt. So, the western shore of the creek itself was thoroughly searched, but the east side was ignored altogether. With the first frustrating week gone by and with nothing to show for it, some of the searchers began to suspect that there might be something that the parents weren't telling them. Some of them even went as far as to accuse Samuel and Susanna of harming their children and staging the disappearance to cover it up. Although this was just speculation and frustration, some searchers even began looking for newly dug and poorly concealed graves in and around the family's cabin. When these new searches turned up nothing, and as volunteers began returning to their homes and farms, it looked like neither the family nor the community would get any closure. More than a week after the disappearance, a Pennsylvania farmer named Jacob Dibbert was so frustrated by the search revealing nothing that he told his wife that he wished he could have a dream in which the boys' whereabouts would be revealed to him. Then, incredibly, on the night of May 2nd, he apparently did. In his dream, Jacob claimed he was walking along a quiet path in the woods when he crossed a log that had fallen over a creek. Then he came upon a dead deer and a child's shoe at the base of a damaged birch tree. He initially passed off as the product of his overactive imagination. After all, he'd been thinking about the dream before he actually had it. But as the story goes, Jacob then had nearly identical dreams over the following few nights, which he only told his wife about initially. Initially as well, though, he didn't really know what to make of these dreams. At the same time, though, it was just too weird to be having the exact same dream over and over with such specific details. Eventually, he told his brother-in-law about this dream, and incredibly, his brother-in-law recognized some of the landmarks Jacob was describing. Shortly afterward, the two set out to search the forest near the family's home to see if they could locate the items and landmarks that he'd dreamt about. Eventually, they reached the creek near the family's home, but like the other volunteers, Jacob's brother-in-law didn't think the boys could have crossed the creek. Jacob eventually convinced him that they had, and eventually the pair found the dead deer, the child's shoe, and the damaged birch tree on the other side of the creek where searchers hadn't looked. And tragically, nestled among the birch roots, they also found the bodies of Joseph and George nearly 2 weeks after they'd gone missing. Unsurprisingly, the remarkable sequence of events shifted suspicion from Samuel and Susanna onto Jacob. In fact, many people thought that this story was entirely made up and that he probably never had these dreams in the first place. And if he'd never had these dreams, the only way he could have known about the boys' location was if he'd been involved in their disappearance. But after autopsy, both children seemed to have died from exposure and there wasn't any evidence of foul play. As far as anyone could tell, they'd left the cabin to follow their father, crossed the creek, and then got hopelessly lost in the woods. Of course, it is possible that someone helped them cross the creek and then abandoned them on the other side, however unlikely. Whatever happened, the boys eventually became exhausted, lay down on the roots of the birch tree, fell asleep, and never woke up. In 1906, a small memorial was built to the site where the boys were found on land that's now part of Blue Knob State Park. Now, more than 150 years later, the story is still a permanent part of local lore, and the lost children of the Alleghenies probably won't be forgotten anytime soon. In late 1928, two young newlyweds set out on an epic rafting trip down the Green and Colorado rivers in the American Southwest. But their homemade boat was eventually discovered full of gear and in good condition near the Grand Canyon, but the couple was never seen again. Now, nearly a century later, the disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde is still shrouded in myth and controversy. Glenn Hyde was born in Twin Falls, Idaho on December 9, 1898. Growing up, he and his family rafted some of the wildest rivers in western Canada and the United States. Glenn's love for adventure and all things outdoors grew steadily, and while he was still a teenager, he and his younger sister Jean piloted a sweep scow, which is a type of wooden boat from the Salmon River in Idaho all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Glenn's future wife Bessie was born nearly 2,000 miles away in Parkersburg, West Virginia on December 29, 1905, and unlike Glenn, growing up, she preferred poetry and acting. Then, after graduating high school, she ran off with her childhood sweetheart and got married. Unfortunately, the marriage ended pretty quickly after it started, but her husband refused to grant Bessie a divorce. Undeterred by this, she wasn't about to let a failed marriage get in the way for her plans for the future, and so shortly after, she moved to San Francisco and enrolled at the California School of Fine Art. By then, Glenn was also in California, and the two met and fell in love on board a ship traveling between San Francisco and Los Angeles in 1927. Fairly quickly into the relationship, the young couple was already talking about marriage, but by then, Bessie's husband still refused to grant her divorce. So to expedite the process, she moved to Nevada, established residency, and took advantage of the state's divorce-friendly laws. Then, finally, as a free woman once again, Glenn and Bessie got married in Twin Falls, Idaho on April 10, 1928, the day after her divorce was finalized. Soon after that, they decided to spend their honeymoon rafting down the Colorado River after reading reports of a film crew that had recently been rescued while making a similar rafting trip through the Grand Canyon. By the late 20s, less than 50 people had managed to travel the full length of the Grand Canyon by boat, and of those who had, all were men. With Glenn's experience and Bessie's energy, they reasoned that they had as good of a chance of succeeding as anyone else. After all, Glenn was eager to establish himself as an outdoorsman, and family and friends described Bessie as an ambitious young woman out to make a name for herself any way she could. If they succeeded, Bessie would be the first woman to complete the trip, and with a little luck, they might even set a new record for the fastest trip through the Grand Canyon and become national sensations overnight. To give them the best chance possible, Glenn decided to build his own flat-bottom scow, just like the ones he'd used on previous trips throughout Canada and the Pacific Northwest. Known for their stability in rough, rocky, and shallow water, the scow was the perfect boat to navigate the turbulent waters of the Green and Colorado rivers in Utah, Arizona, and California. Glenn spent about $50 and 2 days building the boat, which he promptly named Rain in the Face. Then on October 20th, 1928, friends and family members gathered to see the couple off. According to those who showed up, Bessie seemed nervous and tentative about the upcoming journey, but excited nonetheless. And then, her and Glenn pushed the 20-foot scow into the water at Green River, Utah, and drifted away from the shore. They estimated that from their starting point, the trip would take about 6 weeks to their final destination, which was Needles, California. Their gear included journals, clothes, food, and a gun, but incredibly, no life jackets because Glenn considered them to be an unnecessary extravagance. Over the following weeks, he and Bessie successfully navigated a number of dangerous rapids and made contact with 3 different groups of people. The first meeting was with a riverman who was immediately concerned that they didn't have life jackets. He also told them that he didn't think their scow would even make it through the Grand Canyon, let alone the full distance to Needles. But, despite his warnings, Glenn and Bessie arrived at Bright Angel Creek in the Grand Canyon on November 16th. By then, they'd been on the water for nearly a month, but had only completed about half of their trip instead of 2/3 like they thought they would. The next people they ran into were while hiking up the Bright Angel Trail, and were 2 brothers named Emery and Ellsworth Kolb, who owned a renowned photography studio on the canyon's south rim. Emery introduced Glenn and Bessie to his family and gave them some supplies and gave them a quick tour of his studio, but like the old riverman, he told them that he didn't think their boat would make it the rest of the way and that they'd be better off spending the winter with him and his family. Glenn ultimately declined the offer, but the family later said that Bessie seemed tense and looked almost though she wanted to accept their offer. Upon seeing Emery's daughter all dressed up for the occasion as well, apparently Bessie even wondered aloud whether she'd ever get to wear such pretty shoes again. But despite Bessie's hesitance and strange comment, she and Glenn said and continued on. A day later, they met a wealthy California man named Sutro near the Grand Canyon Village. He would end up asking to join them, and Glenn agreed to take him as far as an area known as Hermit Rapids. The 3 of them arrived on schedule the following day, but by then, Sutro was shaken, happy to just be alive. The boat ride was apparently much rougher than he was expecting. In addition to that, after experiencing some of the Colorado River's most dangerous waters, he also said that Bessie seemed nervous and out of her element, while Glenn had trouble handling the heavy boat. Then on top of that, Sutro also noticed that the couple didn't seem to adequately secure the scow at night, meaning that he was worried that it could come loose and drift away. All things considered, he thought it was a miracle that they'd even gotten as far as they had. Eventually, the 3 of them parted ways, and after Sutro said goodbye at Hermit Camp, Glenn and Bessie were entirely on their own. Unfortunately, not much is known about this portion of their trip. It wasn't until 2 weeks later on December 6th when they didn't arrive in Needles that Glenn's father officially alerted the authorities that the couple was missing. Right away, Glenn's father rounded up volunteers and launched a number of river searches over the next few days. He also hired Native American trackers and even convinced Secretary of War Dwight Davis to authorize the use of military aircraft in the search. For nearly 2 weeks, there wasn't a single trace of the couple until December 19th, airmen spotted the scow floating in a shallow pool at mile 237. There was still no sign of Glenn and Bessie, but the news did bring fresh hope they might eventually be found alive and well. Glenn's father and the Cole brothers set out to Peach Springs, Arizona to launch another search party that would make its way to the scow. The Cole brothers and a number of volunteers left a few days later and reached mile 237 on Christmas morning. All they found, though, was the scow floating just where the pilot said it would be. The boat's bow line had snagged on something in the shallow section of the river, keeping it in place, but it was unclear how long it had been there. The boat was also intact, and the couple's gear was neatly stowed and secured inside. Weirdly, there were no signs of an accident or foul play, and Bessie had made the last entry into her diary on November 30th with no indication of anything wrong. After removing as much gear from the scow as they could take with them, Emery ordered the boat to be cut free to continue floating down the river. Later, he was criticized for this, as further investigation may have revealed more about the missing couple. Some saw this as a careless act, while others considered it to be downright suspicious. Back in Peach Springs, Emery showed Glenn's father the gear they'd recovered, told him that he thought that whatever had happened, it was clear that Glenn and Bessie didn't leave the boat intentionally. Searchers then spent another month combing the canyons around Diamond Creek with no luck, and then Glenn's father returned the following year too, but Glenn and Bessie were never seen again. The weirdest thing about their disappearance, though, is that by the time they disappeared, the couple had already made it through some of the Colorado River's most infamous stretches. It would be weird for them to have made it through those sections, but not some of the easier later sections. At the same time, however, many experienced rafters suspect that the scow might have slammed into a boulder just below the surface in an area where the current was particularly strong. If they'd been going fast enough and had been caught off guard, the impact could have thrown Glenn and Bessie from the boat. Then, in the frigid water without life jackets, they could have quickly drowned before making it to shore. Another theory is that it's possible that the scow had come loose from its tether and drifted into the current when they stopped on the shore to prepare a meal or sleep for the night. This seems fairly likely as well, because Sutro noted that they didn't take adequate care in securing the boat the night he spent with them on the river. Then, if it did drift away, they might have been stranded with unclimbable cliffs on either side and unswimmable ice-cold water to every other side. In addition to these theories about some sort of accident, a number of more sinister theories began emerging almost immediately after the disappearance. The first was that Bessie had had enough of her domineering new husband by the time they'd reached the Grand Canyon, and that she decided to kill him, hike out, and then start a new life under a new alias. For a while, this seemed pretty far-fetched, but things took an interesting turn one evening in 1971 around a campfire at Diamond Creek. After a long day on the river with fellow rafters, an elderly woman announced that she was Bessie Hyde and that she'd stabbed her abusive and overbearing husband, concealed his body, and then hiked out of the canyon on her own all the way back in 1928. However, upon further investigation, birth records showed that she was born in Ohio and Elizabeth Cutler was her real name. This seemed to put an end to the idea that Bessie had harmed Glenn. The case then took another twist when one of the brothers, Emery Culp, died in 1976. Friends going through his boathouse the following year discovered a skeleton with a bullet hole in its skull. It was eventually sent to a forensic anthropologist who determined that it was from a tall Caucasian male who probably died in his 20s, which matched Glenn's description. In addition, the .32 caliber bullet rattling around inside the skull was fired from a revolver manufactured around the turn of the 20th century. It was ultimately ruled that the skeleton wasn't Glenn's, but not everybody was so sure that such a definitive determination could be made, especially with forensic DNA testing not available yet. Either way, the skeleton sparked rumors that Emery Culp had become smitten or maybe even infatuated with Bessie during the short visit to the Grand Canyon, and that he'd killed Glenn out of sheer jealousy. Again, this seems fairly far-fetched, and detractors have also pointed out that Emery Culp had served as a representative for the local coroner. It would be incredibly strange, but it's at least possible that he took an unclaimed skeleton home as a souvenir, and that was the one that was found. The final weird possible lead came in 1992 when a well-known Colorado River rafting guide named Georgie White became a person of interest. Shortly after her death, friends going through her belongings discovered a revolver, a copy of Glenn and Bessie's marriage certificate, and a birth certificate showing that her real name was Bessie DeRoss. Although her family name was different from Bessie's, it added even more to the conspiracy fire. At the very least, her name was an odd coincidence, and the marriage certificate was even more strange. It also begs the question, why would a river guide need an alias? In any case, whoever she really was, photographs of her as a middle-aged woman and those of Bessie as a young woman do look kind of similar. But ultimately, although the mystery has been featured in dozens of articles, books, and podcasts, we'll probably never know exactly what happened to Glenn and Bessie Hyde. By 1945, the Sodders were a well-respected family of first-generation Italian Americans. The head of their family and father, Giorgio Soddu, immigrated to the US at just 13 years old and quickly changed his name to George Sodder. An older brother accompanied him as well, but only as far as Ellis Island before the two went their separate ways. After arriving in the US, George quickly found work as a railroad laborer in Pennsylvania and eventually moved to West Virginia and founded a successful trucking company. Then, in the early 1920s, he met a young woman named Jenny Capriani, who'd also been born in Italy. The couple got married 3 years later in 1923 and then moved to Fayetteville, West Virginia, put down roots, and got down to business starting a family. By all accounts, George was a good father, husband, and provider, but he also had strong opinions about politics and current events, and his views didn't always sit well with other Italian Americans in the town, especially with some of the tumultuous and controversial things occurring across the Atlantic before and during World War II. On the night of December 24th, 1945, George, Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children shared a meal before opening a few presents in celebration of Christmas Eve. After dinner and presents, the family went to bed like any other ordinary evening. Around midnight, the telephone rang and Jenny thought it might be her son who was in the army calling to wish everyone Merry Christmas. But when she answered, the voice on the other end of the line belonged to a strange woman who asked Jenny if she could speak to someone she didn't know. Because of the laughter in the background of the call, Jenny assumed that the woman was at a Christmas party and had dialed the wrong number after one too many drinks. Before returning to the first-floor master bedroom, Jenny noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains hadn't been drawn and that the front door was unlocked. Since one of their children, Marion, was the only one asleep on the living room couch, she figured the other children were already upstairs in bed. So she closed the curtains, locked the door, turned out the lights, and returned to her own bed. Shortly after dozing off, she thought she heard something heavy hit and roll off the roof. But in that in-between waking up and sleeping, it didn't really register how weird that was, so she fell right back asleep after hearing the noise. About 30 minutes later, she was woken up again, but this time by heavy smoke filling their bedroom. George woke up a few seconds later, and already they could barely see or breathe. Since the fire had already swept through the downstairs, they grabbed 2-year-old Sylvia from the crib next to their bed and then ran out of the house. 3 of their kids, 16-year-old George Jr., 17-year-old Marion, and 23-year-old John, were already outside, but 6-year-old Dolly, 8-year-old Jenny, 10-year-old Louis, 12-year-old Martha, and 14-year-old Maurice were not outside yet. George immediately ran back to the house and shouted a downstairs